Welcome into the Monday edition of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe Rexrode, the Nashville Predators are in the playoffs, baby. They get a huge win against Carolina on Saturday night, 3-1, to punch their ticket to the postseason for the 7th consecutive season. That was quite the game on Saturday night against Carolina.
Now, wait a minute. You're sanctioning that?
What do you mean?
7th consecutive season.
I'm just going by what the technicality says.
So was it the playoffs last year or not?
Apparently. It was the playoffs.
Okay. All right, good. I'm glad that we can establish that.
It was the playoffs.
Yeah, it was a heck of a win for them Saturday night. Afterward, I did think, after we had a blast, the post-game
yes, we did.
Post-game question session. That's kind of fun, and when you can make fun of, like, Zoom cuts off your mic, and then we can all make fun of the question being asked. But I thought shortly after that, like, gosh, this is a lot of to do about a team that's made 4th place. But still, what was the percentage, Ryan Porth? 0.34?
0.34% back on March 15th, I think.
Yeah.
So a 99.66, if I'm doing my math right, chance that they would not be in the playoffs. So it's
It's pretty incredible.
Interesting balance. It's a heck of a run to get there. It's also, you squeaked in as the 4th place team.
Yeah, but hey, they're there. And it didn't happen the way that I predicted in weekend winners. I thought that we would see Tampa Bay take down Dallas on Friday night. That did not happen. Dallas gets the win against Tampa Bay Friday night. So all of a sudden, it's a pretty high-pressure situation for the Predators heading into that game on Saturday. And I was doing the morning skate duties for NHL.com and was listening to Rod Brindamore, coach of the Hurricanes, talk Saturday morning. And he had some interesting comments. He's like, tonight we're going to play straight up, and then we'll reevaluate on Monday and see what it looks like after that. So when I heard that basically Carolina was going full speed ahead on Saturday, I was like, well, okay, well, if you're the Predators, this is an opportunity for you now where you're going to have to earn this, and they did. I mean, I thought, it was a good game from the Predators from start to finish, but I also thought Carolina, they just don't go away. They make it 2-0 with Luke Cunnin on Saturday night, and then immediately Carolina makes it 2-1, and you're like, okay, well, this is not going to be easy coming down the stretch. Saros had to make some huge saves, and then Haula ices it away with the empty netter. All in all, I think a game where you had to approach it as a must-win type game if you were the Predators, and I thought they did that. I thought they played really well, and really from start to finish in that game looked like they were right there with the Carolina Hurricanes, which I think was encouraging to see.
Yeah, and that's where, and I know we're going to talk more about it, but that is where I wonder, like if the Preds were at 100% absolute desperation, we know they were. Where was Carolina? Was that Carolina? Was that the real Carolina? I mean, it was their real lineup.
Yeah.
They are playing for something. They're playing for the President's Trophy. That's a worthwhile pursuit unless you think it is cursed, and I think some hockey people do think it's cursed. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brindamore thinks it's cursed. But, I mean, it's worth trying to get home ice, right, for the postseason, but it's different than still being in the fight for the division. So what percentage of Carolina was that?
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, like you said, they've got their lineup out there, and Brindamore talked about that the morning of and said, look, if you're playing, there's only one way to play the game. I mean, you're going to get hurt if you don't play that way. There's one way to play, and you got to go if you're on the ice playing. So, I mean, look, I thought Carolina, they had their chances too. I mean, it was halfway through the game, and this was the thing that probably stood out to me the most. They got halfway through the game. Carolina had 8 shots on goal. You don't see that happen to Carolina very often.
Well, and that's the thing. That's where because look, we talk about this all the time in sports. You quit or you're tanking. You're not trying. Play this game. Go play this game at anything but your best and see what happens to you, right? But I think back to like the first period, especially that last time they were there, and that team. I was like, I mean, well, what do they do? How do they handle this? And I didn't see a lot of that team the other night. Is there just a little extra like whatever? I don't know. I mean, regardless, it's an earned win against a full lineup, and it didn't come easy. So I mean, I think it's got to be encouraging. it's just one of those things where tonight is going to be a totally different deal. And then you get in, and if the Carolina wins, 5-1 in game one, maybe we'll look back and be like, well, maybe that just wasn't their best. But I don't know. It's just a hard one for me to judge. Well,
I thought it was too, but I thought, to the Predators' credit, I mean, they played well. I mean, I thought they had multiple chances in that game to score and to go up probably earlier than they did in that game. I mean, I thought the fourth line was awesome in that game. I mean, I know we continued to talk about it. I thought they were great. I mean, Trennan was awesome other than the hit to the head that he had that set up the penalty for Carolina. But I thought he was great in that game, creating chances. Like, really, every line had their moments in that game where you're like, okay, playing pretty well out there.
Yeah, but especially that. I mean, that they had, 17 minutes?
Yeah.
Most of any of the four line. I mean, it's I'm sitting there in the third period like, I'd put those guys out there as often as you can possibly put them out there.
Yeah.
It's different when they're out there, and it's amazing how consistent they've been with that. But I agree. I mean, I think everyone had their moments. Obviously, both of those passes by Granlund, especially the first one to Cunnin, were utterly.
It was unbelievable.
Utterly ridiculous plays. And Saros had, he had a couple that were just big time.
Yeah, I mean, he had two in the game where it was essentially a wide open net, either on a 3-on-1 or a 2-on-1, and he pushed himself across the crease quickly enough to where, I mean, he was almost fully squared up on one. It was amazing. And the other one, he just got his blocker on. I mean, another just awesome night from UC Saros. He didn't have to do a ton in that game, but there were a couple moments where he had to make some huge saves. And as you said, I mean, especially the first pass by Granlund to set up Conan's goal in the backhand. I mean, that little sauce backhand to kind of lead you into the breakaway was unbelievable. And then the one touch that he had to lead Conan into the zone. And he was just awesome on Saturday night.
He was. He's been tremendous. And, Conan finished, so you forgive the missing Yarncroke right in front of the net before.
I saw you in the press box. Conan swings around the net. Yarncroke's wide open in the middle of the ice, and he just misses him. And all of a sudden, Rexrode's hands just get thrown up in the air. What are you doing?
I'm looking over to Vinga, my left, like, what I saw him. How did he not see him?
It's Jadeveon Rexcroke. Yeah. How could you not pass him the puck?
That's Rexcroke, for crying out loud. If it wasn't anybody but Rexcroke,
I know.
Yeah, that was confusing. But hey, you finish, and
he scored twice.
All is well.
That's
and
right.
Cunnin, another one of it's one of those stories that isn't getting. It's down the list of stories on this team as they've made this run, but. Are you seeing some upside from Cunnin?
Yeah, he's looked really good. I mean, I keep waiting for him. We talked about it heading into this game. Could we see some line changes? We really didn't heading into that game, and I kept wondering, is there going to come a point where that Yarncroke, Granlund, Cunnin line gets broken up? And right now, I mean, I don't think there is. I think they really like what they've got there, and it's hard to blame them with the results that we've seen.
Yeah, no, it's been very effective. But I'm trying to think, if everyone's back, what do? Do you still try to preserve that somehow? I guess you could.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, preserve that in the fourth line and mess with the other two.
Yeah, it's probably the way they'll go. I think.
You think so?
I mean, who's out right now Arvidsson? He'll be back in there.
Right.
I guess you got to figure out what you're going to do with either Brad Richardson or Nick Cousins. But other than that, yeah, I think those will be the two lines they mess with. They're not messing with that fourth line. I can pretty much tell you that.
No.
They love that.
I mean, could it be Haula, Duchesne, and Arvidsson on your third line?
It absolutely could be.
And then you just keep Forsberg, Johansson, and Tolvanen together unless they hit a dry spell in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I still think they need to do more, by the way.
I agree.
But yeah, that's probably what it's going to be.
Well, then the atmosphere Saturday night was awesome, too. I mean, you had – I want to say it was close to 7,000 in there. It was really cool. I think they were back up to 40% in Bridgestone Arena. Awesome environment. And then when Haula scores that empty net goal, I mean, the place just went nuts. I mean, that's when you knew their ticket was punched and that the playoffs were coming again. And I think up until that point, I mean, Carolina had some sustained zone time where it was 2-1, and you're like, okay, get the puck out of there. And then Haula gets it, ices it down, and it goes in the net. That's when you I think could breathe a sigh of relief as a Predators fan.
So, yeah, it was a very good atmosphere, and I think even when it was, and it did, I looked around the crowd, I'm like, gosh, it looks like 50-ish%, but 40% is close to that, obviously. And there's tonight, which of course could be quite a night. Could be quite a night. We think is quite a night, but isn't that night. That's what's one real interesting thing about this whole Pecorine angle. But then Game 3 against Carolina will be, I believe, about 70% in that building, and that's going to make a difference.
Yeah, that's going to make a big difference. There's going to be a raucous environment as we move forward here. So I thought it was a really cool environment Saturday night, a good response by the Nashville Predators, and they get it done. They're in the playoffs. Ryan Porth, you're in the building Saturday night. What did you think of that game, that environment?
It's pretty amazing. The last 2 Saturday nights in that building have been pretty special, all things considered. And, I hear what you're saying, Joe, earlier in the segment of, like, all this just for a playoff spot. But the 0.34%, and you had to do almost everything perfectly over the course of 2 months to get in, just to get into the playoffs, just to give yourself a chance. I think that was the driving force of that celebration on Saturday night.
Yeah, and look, they earned the celebration. I'm not saying they didn't. I mean, it's kind of like the conversations about Saros for Vezina or John Hines for Jack Adams, which is, I think, worth having. But it's if you just took what you did from rock bottom, I mean, there's no doubt, right? There's no doubt about those two things. Well, I mean, I think I would say even on Coach of the Year, there's at least a strong case. And in terms of, like, celebrating this team, I mean, it's been tremendous. But if you take it all into account, it's like, okay, well, why'd you get to 0.34, right?
Sure.
I mean, you're taking it into the context of where this franchise has been, where you expect it to be.
I mean, if this whole season was just a flat line of consistency, I don't think the celebration Saturday night is nearly what it was.
Agree.
But the fact that they have rallied from rock bottom to get into the playoffs, I think was definitely the driving force behind what took place in that atmosphere on Saturday.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, these guys and some of the people involved in this weren't involved in the bad stuff. I mean, some of these young guys, I mean, Tanner Jeannot, all he knows is winning. All he knows is winning and being on the most important line on an NHL team.
All he does is win.
That's right.
That's true.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I just want to point out, before the season started, I picked the Nashville Predators to finish in 4th place in the Central Division.
I think we did, too.
Exactly how we all drew it up.
Knew it the whole time. Knew this is how it was going to play out the whole time. We are off and running today here on Robby and Rexrode. The Nashville Predators punching their ticket to the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. When we come back, we'll continue that discussion. Take your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. How much should this playoff berth be celebrated amongst Predators fans? We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game.
Comes over on the Predators' right side for Howla. He got covered. Then Bean holds it in left point. Try to pass across, comes to Howla. Shooting for the empty net. He scores! Eric Howla at 18:57 makes it 3-1 Nashville. 1 second, and that will do it. And the Predators, folks, have made the playoffs for the 7th consecutive year. They beat Carolina here tonight. 3-1. What a ride.
The Nashville Predators get it done 3-1 against the Carolina Hurricanes on Saturday night, punching their ticket to the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. And, Joe, it really is incredible. When you look back at the story arc of this season, get around mid-March, and as Porth pointed out, a 0.34% chance of getting into the playoffs. I mean, they were virtually done at that point, and everybody was talking about the future, the conversations we were having on this show, and with articles being written in The Athletic, and things we were talking about were blowing this team up and trading Matthias Ekholm and what was going to happen with Philip Forsberg, all these different questions surrounding this group. And the turnaround from March 15th until now has been sensational, and they capped it off on Saturday night with a trip to the playoffs. So it's interesting because I think if you would have said before the season, Joe, that the Predators would have made the playoffs on the last Saturday of the regular season, my response would have been, okay, yeah, that probably sounds about right on the bubble where we expected them to be all along. It does feel much different than that in terms of the response from the fan base, kind of the collective sigh of relief and celebration on Saturday night when that Eric Halla goes in. I mean, that place was rocking. There was some legit excitement for the Predators to punch their ticket into the playoffs. When you factor in everything, the preseason expectations, the arc that this team has taken over the course of the last few years, and where this team was on March 15th to get to this point, how do you view this playoff berth from the Nashville Predators? How should this playoff berth be viewed from the outside looking in?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I do think that the answer for people will could fall on that. Who are you?
Yeah.
Are you a sunshiny person? Are you a little bit more of a cynic, doom and gloomer? I've heard from people very recently whose opinions I respect very much. This is too bad that they've now convinced themselves they're anything more than average. But on the other hand, I think this is the most sustained positivity for the Preds in 2 years. So I'm saying a lot of words without answering your question. It's hard for me to answer that definitively. Yeah. It really is, because I think there are reasons for optimism, and there are some good things here that you can see them building on. And you start with Saros, of course. But if this leads to Carolina in 5 and you lose Granlund, then I think we're going to go right back to, was it worth going for it here? Now, I think from a business perspective, there'll be a definitive, yup. Yeah. It's a business, and they're going to get home playoff games, and they're going to have 70% capacity in those home playoff games, and that matters. So there's an economic element to this. There's also an entertainment element to this. I mean, if you're a Preds fan, are you not entertained right now? I mean, right?
I would hope so.
Are you not enjoying this? I would hope so. It's just, if you take it into the big picture view, I'm not sure what this means. I do think that it gives you some hope that with some kind of well-executed retooling, you could actually be not that far from a team that could be up with the best. And we're going to find out if they can hang with the best or close to the best real soon here.
I think the thing that stands out to me about this run is, to me, this is the first time in a long time that they have responded well when their backs have been up against the wall. In a long time. Like, I'm trying to think back to the last time it's happened. I guess probably at some point during the President's Trophy season, they had faced some sort of adversity. I don't know. I mean, you get put out in the second round against Winnipeg. It was a great series. You're playing a great team. I don't hold much of that season against the Predators. But I know for sure, ever since then, the minute things have started to go wrong for this team, it's spiraled out of control. That Dallas series, I know it was 6 games, and at one point they were up in the series. There's not really one game in that series where they were the better team against Dallas. I mean, this has been a pretty consistent slide for this group, and it feels like for the first time in maybe 2 years when they turned this thing around on March the 15th, that this group kind of sucking it up. Things had gone wrong, and you found a way to dig yourself out. And it's been a while since they've been able to dig themselves out of anything. And I think that's what kind of stands out to me about this turnaround that they've had is this mental toughness, emotional toughness, whatever you want to call it, that we spent so much time kind of slamming this team on and trying to get them to figure it out. They seem like they finally figured it out, and this group has gotten some of that back in them. They feel like they work hard again, which I think for a while was a big question with this group. And I think you're heading into a playoffs. Even with some of the veterans on this team, I think it feels different. And Roman Josi kind of talked about that after the game on Saturday night about, obviously, I mean, he's had a lot of experience making the playoffs with this Predators group, but this one feels just a little bit different. Here's what Predators captain Roman Josi had to say.
I think it's a lot different than every year we made it to playoffs since I've been here. It's first of all, it's a different season, obviously, but I think just the way we got in, the start we had, nobody was happy the way we played, and I'm really proud of the guys. Like we definitely earned it the hard way. We worked extremely hard to clinch a playoff spot. Just looking back at the last 20 games, it felt like every game was so important. We were in the playoff race every game, and the guys really, like everyone in our locker room, played really well. And I'm proud of the team. It took a lot of hard work, so. It's exciting. We're definitely enjoying this one tonight.
So that was Roman Josi after the game on Saturday night. And the hard work part of this, look, I mean, you work hard to a certain degree every year. I mean, if you don't, to your point earlier in the show, I mean, you're just going to get embarrassed out there. So it's not like the Predators have just been going through the motions for the last 2 years. But I think they kind of reached in the reserve tanks and found a different gear this year in terms of digging themselves out of this. And that, to me, as you look at, regardless of what happens moving forward here, is probably the most encouraging thing about this group. I think there's actually some hope about the trajectory of this group now, where that was completely spiraling out of control earlier this season and even at the end of last year, too.
Yeah, well, right, I agree. But I think what happens also kind of helps validate it, sure, or makes it look like, okay, you had a nice little run, and here's still what you are. But you're right. You think about just the conversation about totally blowing things up just a few weeks ago, and now where we are. I mean, it's kind of reminds me of the Titans, like offensively, a couple years ago when they were like the worst in the league, and all of a sudden they're almost the best in the league.
Yeah,
in 1 year, you don't see that too often. I think that I think that this team is one that's easy to embrace. And I think it's been a while for that too. I guess maybe they had to have kind of a late run to win the division at the end of 18-19. But that year, 18-19 was it was like, okay, keeping everything together wasn't the right move, and it's just not quite. And again, you start from there to the middle of this season. Yeah. It's kind of like one direction.
Yeah.
And now if it's like one of those whatever, like a stock chart. Yeah. Now it's starting to do this. I just don't know how much more it has this way. Maybe a lot. Maybe they've righted the ship and figured it out. But there's still a lot to find out.
So for you, Joe, what validates it?
What validates
the run that they've been on, the decision to quote go for it? Is it just beating Carolina or more than that?
Well, I'll say what I said at the trade deadline. If they get in. If they have a good showing, which to me, I mean, if they push Carolina to 6 or 7 games and they're competitive night after night with Carolina, I call that a good showing. And they keep Granlund, then I will look back at the trading it and say, okay, good job. I mean, if they lose to Carolina in 5 and lose Granlund, I think that it's going to be easy to second guess that decision, and I think it's fair.
Yeah, I think it's totally fair. Let's go to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Tyler from Berry Hill texting in. If the Preds had played mediocre hockey the entire year and snuck into the playoffs in the second to last game, it'd be much less exciting for the fans.
Yes.
But with how well they had to play down the stretch, they've convinced people that they can play well enough to compete in the playoffs.
That's well said. That's perfectly put. I mean, you had to be so good for so long to get here. Why can't you sustain it?
Yeah.
But again, it starts with one guy.
It does start with one guy, and he's going to be crucial in this matchup coming up because the crazy part is, I mean, we knew this heading into the game Saturday. You win that game, not only do you get in the playoffs, you know exactly who your opponent is going to be as well. And let me tell you what, this opponent that they're going up against is very good. What do we think of the Predators and the Carolina Hurricanes in this matchup in the playoffs? And how much does Saturday's game and the result of it affect maybe what our thoughts are heading into the series? We'll talk about that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. This season, catch all the action of Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans and 312 Pizza. Tomorrow, the Sounds have their home opener taking on in-state rival, the Memphis Redbirds, at First Horizon Park, with pregame starting at 6:20 and the first pitch at 6:35. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well, discussing the Nashville Predators punching their ticket to the playoffs. And, Joe, we know what the matchup will be. It will be the Carolina Hurricanes, and there is a potential for the Predators to play the Hurricanes 9 times in a row. You got the first one out of the way on Saturday, another one coming up tonight, which we'll get to a little bit more here in just a few minutes, and then, of course, the beginning of a 7-game series coming up at some point during this next week here when the playoffs begin. So a potential for 9 games in a row against Carolina. As you look at it, and obviously that's the first win the Predators got at all against Carolina on Saturday night all season. So you're 1-5-1 against this team. My guess is tonight's game, from a lineup perspective, probably going to look a little bit different for both teams. I think you could see some guys on both sides that get rested. So I'm not sure you're going to be able to really take anything away from this matchup tonight if it goes the way I think it could, and we'll find out exactly what the lineup looks like at morning skate. What's your confidence level if you're the Predators heading into this matchup? Obviously, it's a team you've struggled with all year. Some of those losses came where you were not a very good hockey team, quite frankly, and you were struggling to compete with really anyone, much less Carolina, earlier in the season. You've turned things around since then. You played 2 games at Carolina a few weeks ago where they still handled you pretty good. You come back with a win last night, or Saturday night against Carolina, where you looked pretty good. Where's your confidence level right now if you're the Nashville Predators heading into this matchup?
I feel like I'm not answering any of your questions.
Well, you need to start.
Because it's like, was that what they are? Like, to me, like if that game happened a week ago, okay, then I'm like, okay, they figured something out here. You know, listen, I thought Nashville was absolutely the better team for most of the first 2 periods.
Yeah.
So that should make your confidence level rise. And it's up some just because you at least beat them. Okay, you can beat that team. But is that Carolina? Full lineup. They didn't look to me like they were not trying.
Yeah.
They looked like they were starting to really hate that 4th line, by the way. Just wait. If they play 9 times in a row, that could get real interesting. I think your confidence level has to go up. I just don't. I mean, because of the circumstance with Carolina, and of course, I saw some people around the league say, "Oh, Carolina picked their opponent." Yeah, there you go. That. Carolina, you wanted the Preds, you got the Preds. You'd rather play them than the Stars. I don't buy that, but I also just, you know how it is. It's like you can have great effort, have your full lineup, but then there's desperation.
Right.
Like you're going to throw yourself in front of every shot. You're going to take every hit you can. You know, it's the Preds we know had it. Where was Carolina?
That's
the question we'll never answer.
Like, I think Carolina, I certainly think that they played hard. I think they tried Saturday night. So I'm not saying that they just came out there and just, floated around, went through the motions.
They absolutely did not.
But I think there is, you can say all the right things, but when your back is truly up against the wall, like the Predators were, like there's a deeper level that you can reach into that if you don't have that, I'm not sure that you can just manufacture. Like, I'm not sure if you're Carolina and we've wrapped up the division. We know we're going to be the number 1 seed, at least in the first couple of rounds if you make it that far. Like, there's no desperation there to me that you can manufacture that puts you on par with the team that is actually fighting for their lives.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean you're always going to lose to those teams, but I'm just saying from a desperation standpoint, to me, there's no way it was equal on Saturday.
There was a difference in incentive. Now, what does Carolina do well? A lot of what Carolina does well, to me, it's not like they're the gritty, physical battering team anyway, right? I mean, they're a skill speed team, and the Preds just did a good job of handling that. So I tend to lean toward, the Preds have figured something out. I just, you say that and then okay, let's see what happens in game 1 of the playoffs.
Well, it's interesting because you asked John Hines after the game on Saturday night about just the confidence factor of getting a win against Carolina and how important that is factoring into the equation over the game Saturday night and coming up on Monday as well. Here's what Predators head coach John Hines had to say.
Hey, John, I was just wondering, with this game and obviously have another game Monday, is there a confidence-building factor here? I mean, I know the biggest thing here is getting into the playoffs tonight, but is there a chance here to build confidence after struggling against that team, for most of the season?
Yeah, Joe, I think tonight was a big was a step in the right direction in that sense where, we had to win to get in. We had to win the game, which what we knew, but also, talked with the guys a lot about it was there's a certain way that we need to play. And I thought the assistant coaches did an excellent job coming up with a few different things over the last couple of days to present to the guys today. And, I thought the way that we competed, the way that we played, that was one where you had to win to get in. And you're also playing the team that you're going to play, and we thought we played a pretty good game here tonight. So, things get elevated in the playoffs, but, I think this is a good step for a first foundation here.
So that's the part that's interesting to me, Joe, is if you're the Predators, how much confidence do the players take away from that win on Saturday? Because, they know what the situation was just as well as we do. They also know that Carolina, they did play their full lineup, and they did, ice a lot of the same lineup that the Predators are going to see in the playoffs. Now, I do think Carolina probably going to get some guys back as we move forward here into the playoffs that they've not had over the course of the last week or two. So that's going to be interesting to see how those guys come back and slot in. I think you'll see some guys from the Predators come back as well. I would imagine Victor Arvidsson probably will be ready for Game 1 by the time that rolls around. So you'll have some guys, I think, coming back into the lineup on both sides. I guess the most interesting question is how much confidence do the players take away from that game on Saturday? I think it's got to be at least some, because you can say all the right things about playing a certain way against an opponent and maybe the bounces just don't go your way, but at some point when you're 0 for 6 against an opponent, that's got to affect your confidence somewhat. To see just 2 points go into the column and to get a win against Carolina, that's got to be somewhat relieving for this group.
Yeah, and it's got to be the fact that that's the game that you had, that's the team you had to beat to finally finish this journey, this improbable journey. That's a big deal. So, and I think from the Carolina perspective, along with going for the President's Trophy, that you may be playing this team, even if you beat them, you may be playing them. So there's incentive to me to not let them have that confidence.
I'd agree.
And they did.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Kelton texting in says, now that we're in the playoffs, do you think the motivation to win the cup will be as strong as it was just to get into the playoffs? I know that it's a long shot. I think certainly the motivation will be there. The question is, are they good enough? Can they put together a run where they can even approach something like that? That's going to be the question. I don't think once you get to the playoffs, I think by and large the motivation is there.
Yeah,
you don't need much extra motivation.
Right. No, exactly. I don't. Now, I think you could make the case that you could make it both ways. Again, the Preds have had to play with such pressure on them, and they've had to play a style that I think does lend itself to the postseason. A lot of times we see these fire wagon teams all of a sudden get into some grinders in the postseason, right? So maybe are the Preds a little bit more built for that? Now the question is, can they get Carolina into games like that?
Yeah.
But that does happen. So between the pressure and between the style of play, are they more prepared for this? You could make that case. You could flip it around and say, that's a drag on a team. How does that not wear on a team to have to do this for basically 2 months in a row? But I don't think motivation. This is such a great tournament every single time, and I don't know. Have we seen a team in this tournament be like, whatever? We've seen shocking upsets.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's why.
I don't think so either. When we come back, we'll take your thoughts on this matchup for the Predators against the Carolina Hurricanes. What do you think of the matchup? What sort of a chance do you give the Predators against the Hurricanes in the first round of the playoffs? 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025 on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. That's next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game.
We're vibing, Robby. Vibing, 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 vibe, 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 vibe. We're vibing, Robby.
Preds are vibing their way right into the playoffs, baby. Taking on the Carolina Hurricanes in the first round. They get it done Saturday night, 3-1, to punch their ticket to the playoffs for the 7th consecutive season, as Joe Rexrode likes to point out. Technically, yes, the 7th consecutive season in the playoffs. I hate that qualifying round.
I feel like there's some segments in the past where you ranted against last year being a playoff bid. So
I did.
I know, you're in a tough spot here, man.
I'm not.
You're in a tough spot.
I have to go by what the book says.
Yeah.
But I hate the qualifying round. I'm glad that thing's gone.
Well, hey. I shouldn't say I hated, because actually at the time I think I almost cried when we
That
got
is
to
true.
watch a Preds playoff practice last summer, and like the bubble in Edmonton was like, oh, sports, But it'll always be this 1 year weird thing.
Yes.
It's just, but it counts.
It does count.
It's playoffs.
So now discussing the
Playoffs.
matchup for the Predators in the playoffs. What do you think of the matchup for the Predators against the Carolina Hurricanes? Where's your confidence level in this matchup heading into the playoffs? Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Nate texts in, says, I give the Preds less of a chance than the 2016 or 2017 team. They aren't the same, even though people like comparing them, and the Canes are better than the Hawks. Early called shot, the most the Preds might win will be one game in that series. So Nate's saying maybe one win for the Predators in the matchup against the Carolina Hurricanes. I do buy what he's throwing out there, that I think this Carolina team is a lot better than that Chicago team was. I think it was pretty clear early on in that series for the Predators against Chicago that, number one, the Predators were just flat out better than the Blackhawks were, but number two, Blackhawks were getting old and the Predators were a lot faster. I don't know if we're going to walk away from this series, regardless of what the result is, going, yeah, the Predators were a whole lot faster than Carolina. Carolina's pretty fast.
Yeah, I know. It's still weird to look back at that year because,
It is.
again, they won the President's Trophy, right? Did Chicago not that year? They did not.
No,
Okay.
no, Washington won it that year.
Washington, yep, that's right. But, they were among the best in the league all year. It was the same guys. It was a 3-cup, But then it really wasn't some kind of fluky thing. Now, it helps when Pekka Rinne goes into their building and comes away with, consecutive shutouts to start the postseason.
That always helps.
That's kind of big. But I agree there's a difference, and I agree that the matchup doesn't look as good right now as it did then, or at least as it turned out then. Maybe it didn't look that good then.
But as we said many times that year, if they get past Chicago, they could be dangerous.
And this year we say if they get past Carolina, oh, God.
There's Florida and Tampa right there.
But if they get past that round, then you better watch out.
And there's Colorado or whoever.
Or Vegas.
Or Vegas. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Bill texts in, says, I'm not predicting this type of a turnaround for the Preds against the Canes, but one year Toronto swept Ottawa in the playoffs after losing every regular season matchup between them. So there is hope for the Preds. To Bill's point there, look, the predictions are going to start to come out over the next few days as the playoff matchups get solidified and you start to look ahead. There are going to be very, very, very few people that pick the Nashville Predators to win. I can just go ahead and tell you.
Anyone outside this town? There's going to be some homers here.
Maybe a couple. You always have people picking upsets, so I'm sure somewhere there will be a couple of people picking the Predators to win this series because of Juuse Saros and the way they've turned things around. But by and large, I would say probably 96% of the picks are going to go with Carolina. That's just the way it's going to be.
Like we have all our staff things at The Athletic. You guys at NHL.com.
Yeah.
ESPN will do it. They do the whole list. They show everybody who they pick.
Be a lot of Carolina.
If I don't see the Predators logo one time, I won't be surprised.
I'll be surprised if I don't see it once.
Yeah.
I think somebody will do it. But it's going to be very, very few people.
Who's most likely to pick this? Is there someone out there who's just
I don't know.
Always likes to pick wacky stuff? Because that's what it will be perceived as, just a wacky pick.
Oh, it's going to be perceived that way. And a lot of what you'll hear is the Predators were I don't know what's going to happen tonight, so let's just base it on the 7 games right now. The Predators were 1-5-1. Or if they win tonight, they're 2-5-1 against the Hurricanes throughout the season. I hear all that. I think in some cases that matters. Playoffs, how many times have we seen it where that really just doesn't matter? It's just a totally different thing. So again, I'm not saying I'm picking the Predators to win this series. I'm not saying that Carolina should not be the overwhelming favorite because I think they should be. I'm just saying if you're basing everything and all your opinions on a regular season when you're trying to determine what's going to happen in a playoff series, sometimes that's a very dangerous game to play, especially in this league.
This tournament, if you watch this tournament enough, the Preds beating the Canes in a series, things of that level of surprise have happened many times in this tournament.
Many times.
That's I mean, really, if you want to get away from the matchup and just if you want to have hope as a Preds fan, I mean, the sport we're talking about should give you some hope.
There have been bigger gaps between two teams that the upset has been pulled.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I mean, Edmonton, Detroit in 2006. I would put Montreal over Washington back in 2010, I think it was. Those were monumental, against all odds upsets that were pulled those years.
I will not bring up Sharks Red Wings in 1994.
Yes.
That was a man.
Sure, that went over well.
Zero chance that was happening.
At Predators fan 97 on Periscope says Preds are plus 190 on DraftKings to win the series. Implied probability of 35%.
Sounds about right.
That's about right.
And that's honestly, really, that's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
35%.
Take that, right?
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean,
that's about what the Athletic had it at.
Yeah.
Dom, whatever his last name is.
Yeah.
Lushizin.
Yeah.
Is that how you say his last name?
I think it is. Well done.
Is that right?
I think it is.
It's kind of embarrassing. I'm
I think he nailed
a coworker of his.
Yeah. I think Porth nailed it.
I call him Dom L too. So
Dom
L.
Yes.
Dom L.
Well, no, like this. If the Predators go out and they win this series, it's going to be an upset. It's not going to be, like this overly world-shocking thing. Like, I think when Columbus beat Tampa Bay, especially in the fashion that they did, sweeping them, like that's a shock. That is like, oh my goodness, where did that come from? Now, if the Predators go out and sweep Carolina, then maybe we're talking about the same level of shock there. But I just look at this team and this matchup. Look, I think it's going to be competitive. I still think Carolina is the favorite. I think they should be the favorite. And I think that Carolina, if I had to pick right now, I'd pick Carolina to win the series. I don't think there'd be any doubt about that. But if you're telling me the Predators could stretch this to 6 or stretch this maybe even to 7 and make this interesting with the way they played, and especially the way their goaltender has played, which we'll get into in just a few minutes, I'm not going to say that's the craziest thing. Like I would not be surprised if that happens.
Here's where in the last 36 hours I've been talking myself into this.
Oh, I saw it on Twitter the other night.
So I felt like Herb Brooks in the movie Miracle when at some point, I think it was one of the intermissions or the start of the third period of we can beat these guys, like where he's talking to the whole bench.
Yeah, when they're playing against the Soviets.
Yes, exactly.
Spoiler alert, that's what the movie's about.
Exactly.
There you go.
I kind of felt like that watching that game Saturday night of they can beat these guys. Now, will they? I don't know. But the fact that you have a team playing with entirely house money against another team that is going to be facing pressure for the first time as a group, if you get in their heads early in the series, I like their chances of coming out of it. I really do.
There's the tweet. They can beat these guys in round 1. Yeah. Ryan Porth.
I will say this. The interesting thing to me that we haven't talked about yet that comes out of that Saturday game is what's going on with Jacob Slavin, who is, I think, the best defenseman Carolina has. I mean, he's awesome. He got taken out of the game after the first period on Saturday. Brenda Moore was asked about it after the game and said they took him out as a precaution, but that he tweaked something. And he kind of looked a little worried about it. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be a long-term thing or not. They were going to, see what information they could gather yesterday. So I am very interested to see what Brenda Moore has to say about that this morning at the morning skate. But if they've lost Slavin for any length of time, that's a pretty massive loss for Carolina.
Or even if he's not 100%.
Yeah. I mean, he's really good. Look, they've got a lot of defensemen that are good. I mean, Dougie Hamilton, he's a really good player. They've got a lot of guys on the back end that you feel good about. But I do think Slavin's their best guy. And if they've lost him, or to Port's point, if he's not out there 100%, that's a big deal for this Carolina team.
Yeah, I mean, they've I agree. Brenda Moore, I don't know. I don't it's not like I've been to a lot of Brenda Moore pressers or watched a lot, but I agree. He seemed a little bit concerned about that. That could be a big deal. Will the Preds – I mean, the Preds are pretty healthy now. We expect Arvidsson to be – if he's day-to-day, I would expect him back in there. I don't know if anyone else – I mean, Olivier is probably coming up here on his time, but again, I don't know that Olivier gets back in this lineup, does he?
I don't know. I mean –
how do you take Tanner Jeannot out?
I don't think you take Tanner Jeannot out. I don't think you're taking Trennan out. Certainly not taking Sissons out.
So, no.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
So the Preds they're close. You know, if you get Arvidsson back in full Arvidsson,
yeah,
that would make a big difference.
Question still to me is, what are you going to do on that third D pair? I mean, you came out the other night, and it was Ben Harper and Matt Benning. Dante Fabro was a scratch on Saturday night. I mean, that was interesting to me. I'm really interested to see what they're going to do about that as they move forward here.
Yeah, I think that's possible, right?
Yeah,
and Fabro just may not be part of this. And what does that mean?
That is very interesting if that ends up being the case. We'll continue the conversation on the Predators when we come back. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Also get into the goaltending as well. What kind of an opportunity is this for UC Saros, and do we believe that he can keep this up now that the playoffs are right around the corner? We'll talk about it next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Middle Tennessee, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well, discussing the Nashville Predators punching their ticket to the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Later this hour, at 7:45, the Rex Rant coming up. Going to make sure that you're stay tuned in for that at 7:45. The Rex Rant you can hear every week on Mondays at 7:45 here on the program. Corey Curtis from News 2 at 8 o'clock and Darren McFarland joining the show at 9 o'clock. Joe, let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I've got a texter that says, and this is Eric from Cookeville, 35% is better than 0.34% back in March. At least there's a chance, something to hope for in this matchup against Carolina. So as Eric points out, if it's a 35% chance that the people are giving the Predators to win, that's much better than the chance they had to make the playoffs. That Porth, his tweet went viral on Saturday night. All sorts of people grabbing onto that 0.34%. Porth's now Twitter famous.
That's a good usage of numbers. Who is that from, by the way, Porth?
SportsClubStats.com.
There you go.
Sports Club Stats?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I see Vingan.
Not our friends at Money Puck.
Vingan wrote something, today on the Preds, and he said 2%, but I don't know what.
It was 0.34 following the 6-3 loss to Tampa Bay that made them 11-16-1.
That's it. I may steal this. 0.34 to 35.
Yeah.
0.34 to get in, to 35 to win a round.
Yeah. Pretty good improvement.
That is.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
We had a text like that in the text line, too.
Yeah, we did.
Give me your name, whoever texted that.
By the way, our friends at MoneyPuck.com have updated the playoff odds. Preds at 100%, just in case you're wondering. Dallas at 0. Which, by the way, how about Dallas totally going in the tank last night after the Predators win? They just get shelled by Chicago last night.
What did Dallas, didn't their official account say something like, good luck to everyone in the playoffs except
Nashville? Yeah. A little bit of saltiness from the Stars.
Poor Stars.
It felt great Saturday night for the Preds to officially punch the ticket, get the X next to their name, but it felt extra good that it eliminated Dallas.
Yeah. There's a lot of disdain that's been coming up for the Dallas Stars with the Predators fan base. That's become a very fun rivalry, and you talk about two teams and two fan bases that don't really like each other. I see a whole lot of bickering going on between Preds and Stars fans now on the social medias.
Where is Dallas on the rival/hated opponent list for the Preds right now?
Easily top 3.
Easily top 3.
Sure,
who are you putting? Who else are you putting in there?
I think Chicago's probably still there. Yeah, I think you're going to have to do some work to unseat Chicago, I think. But Dallas, they're putting in some work. I mean, Dallas at this point, they might be number 2.
See, the problem is some of the contenders, you haven't seen them at all this year, so it kind of puts everything on ice. I mean, I need to pour one out for the Preds-Ducks rivalry. Who knows when they'll play a game of consequence again.
It's funny because after 2018, I thought we were in for like a decade of Preds-Jets. I was like, here we go. Comes the Preds-Jets. It's going to be one of the great rivalries in sports. That ended pretty quick.
I remember after that playoff series, a topic on Preds Insiders was, is Preds-Jets the next Penguins-Capitals?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean,
the answer is no.
Womp womp.
Yes. Not quite. Blues, though. Blues?
Yeah, they're there.
They should be in there a little bit.
At Predemption on YouTube says, the best part of that first-round series versus Chicago was not the sweep. It was not having to hear Chelsea Dagger in the 2 games in Chicago. Thanks, Pex. Certainly.
Let me tell you something. I couldn't agree more. And the thing is, I hate that song, even independent of Chicago.
Yes.
And I go back to when they started getting good, and I was in Chicago a lot for various things, and they'd be at the bar and they'd score a goal and they'd all I was bracing myself both of those games, and that's one of the top things I came away with. Like, did not have to hear that freaking song one time
in
2 nights in this building,
and we still haven't heard it in the playoffs. since the start of that series.
Yeah, we have not. It's not been a good run of things for the Blackhawks as of late, and Pekka Rinne largely to do with that. Now the question is, can UC Saros be that type of guy in the playoffs? He got his first chance last year in the wonderful qualifying round series that we all love. I mean, he was okay in that series against Arizona. I didn't think that he was horrible. I also didn't think that he was great in that series either. I think there's no question he has been awesome for the Predators lately. That's the number one reason why they're here. He's got a .941 save percentage in his last 26 games, that dating back to February the 27th. So the question is, can he keep that going? Is that something that he can continue as they move forward here in the playoffs? Because as we know, it is a different game in the playoffs. There's more pressure involved. You're playing the same opponent, game in, game out. Can UC Saros keep this up? I mean, what I've seen the last 2 months and what I saw on Saturday night against this team tells me, number one, I think he's going to have to keep it up if this team truly has a shot to beat Carolina in this round. But number two, like I'm not going into the playoffs all of a sudden expecting some massive drop-off from UC Saros. I think he's going to give you a chance based on the way that he's played.
Yeah, I think that last year, and remember last year there was some debate over who should start, and I thought they should go with Saros, and they did. And the argument for Pekka Rinne was, gosh, the guy's had so much experience. He's still, he's still capable of stealing you a series. Like, go with the guy who's done more. But to me, Saros had been demonstrably the best goaltender of the two over a pretty significant period of time, and it was the right way to go. And it was also an opportunity to see what you have with him in this kind of pressure. And I thought he was okay. And okay is not going to get it done. Okay is certainly not going to get it done in this series.
No.
It won't come close to getting it done. So it's exciting to have an opportunity to see how he responds to this now. He's getting a lot of love for the way he's played, well deserved. I don't know if he's going to be a finalist for the Vezina. You think so?
I don't know. I mean, I think he's going to be right on the edge. Like I don't. I know this is probably going to make some people mad. I don't think he's really got a chance to win, even though I could certainly listen to an argument on why he should win. I think Vasilevsky is going to win. I just wonder if he has done enough to get on the ballot to be a top three goaltender. I think he has. I don't think it's really all that close. I think he deserves to be in the top three. But you do have Marc-Andre Fleury out there that's played really well. You've got Philip Grubauer that's played really well as well. And those are two teams that have been winning from start to finish this year. So how much does that factor into it? I don't know. If you're asking me, I don't even think it's close. He should be on the ballot at least. I think it is close between him and Vasilevsky as to who should win. But I'm not convinced that he's going to finish being the top three guy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But there's been a lot of discussion about it regardless.
Sure.
He's been one of the stories of the league. The Hart thing, honestly, it's interesting. I mean, the idea that he would get some votes.
And just to clarify, not first place votes.
Yeah, no. Although, well, hey, speaking of that, Rob Rossi.
There was a doozy of a take yesterday, yes.
I mean, he covers the Penguins for us, and he's like, basically like, if you don't vote for Crosby, you're an idiot or something. I'm like, what?
Connor McDavid has 100 points in 53 games.
Right. Now, I know. I mean, I think it's obvious. McDavid should be first on all the ballots. But his point, which actually is a case for Saros too, is, he went through all the stuff that the Penguins have been through. Malkin, all this stuff, the injuries, et cetera, what Crosby's done. You could make the same case with Saros, like how much did you drag a team to where they are? But, I mean.
McDavid's done some dragging.
Yeah, exactly. Talk about
I saw
take him out of that
the plus-minus with him on the ice, or like the goal differential, with him on the ice is like plus 50 or something just crazy like that. Without him, it's like minus 112. It's unbelievable. He's so good.
I'm reading this. I'm like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
But regardless, there's it's the whole value to team versus best player. McDavid's got to be first. I could see Saros getting a few votes.
Yeah.
And I think he should be a finalist for the Vezina. And the bottom line is he's gotten a lot of notice for this. I mean, this is a different level of player. This is just – it looks like it's him taking a step. Now, I don't know that it's realistic. I know it's not realistic to expect this level consistently from here, but this is a big deal to me for the future of this franchise and the trajectory stuff we talk about to see what he does in this series. You know, if he can be the type of guy who can steal a series or get you close to stealing a series because of his play, then, again, you feel that much better about where things are going with him as your long-term answer there.
And as Kyle asked on Periscope says, real question, Robby, is if Saros is just playing his game and not on just a hot streak. I mean, I think the answer can be both. Like, I think you can be on a hot streak and also take a step as a player. Like, to your point, he's got a .941 save percentage in 26 games. That's not sustainable. Like, that's not realistic in this league. It's just not. We've not seen anything like that.
.925 is, though.
Yeah, .925 is. And if you're .925, you're going to win a lot of hockey games. I mean, you're going to be a starting goaltender in this league for a long time if that's your save percentage. So I think two things can be true. I think this can be a hot streak that he's riding to this level and the ridiculous numbers that he's putting up. And I think also you can take a step as a player and realize that the days of you being, having save percentages around .885 or .886 and questions of whether or not you were the guy, I think those days are also over as well. So I think in that instance, two things can be true. We'll continue the discussion on the Predators and UC Saros when we come back, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Make sure you're tuning in later this morning at 8:45 for your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click and win a prize pack brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. The Predators taking on the Carolina Hurricanes tonight in the regular season finale for the Nashville Predators. And they'll be taking on the Carolina Hurricanes in the playoffs as well. They get it done on Saturday night. They have punched their ticket. Now asking the question, what do we think about UC Saros? Can he lead the Predators on a run in the playoffs? And it's been interesting to watch his growth here, Joe, because obviously he's become the guy, and we were wondering, can Saros take a step this year where you feel comfortable about him being the guy as you move forward, at least for the next few years? And you've got to figure out at that point what's going to happen with Askarov. Like, is UC Saros somebody that you can plan on being the goaltender for the next, 7, 8, 9 years? I mean, I think he certainly started to take some steps in that direction and answer those questions with the way that he's played over the last couple of months. Now can he do it in the playoffs and steal this team some games? I mean, that's going to be really what it comes down to with your franchise goaltender. You need your franchise goaltender to be able to steal you some wins, to steal you some games in the playoffs when it matters the most. Now, he's done that. He's stolen many games down this stretch here. Can you do it in the playoffs against a Carolina team where if things are going well and if Carolina's clicking on all cylinders, they're going to have the puck a lot, and they're going to put a lot of shots on goal. They're going to generate some quality opportunities. You need your goaltender to be your best player. He has been for the Predators. I think it's even more important in this specific matchup with, generally speaking, how good Carolina is at holding on the puck. Now, to the Predators' credit, they got them off of that on Saturday night, and they spent the majority of the time in the first couple of periods with the puck in the offensive zone for the Predators. That's not normally the way games for anybody against Carolina plays out. Can Saros do that in this matchup? And, Joe, as I look at trying to kind of evaluate what the Predators' chances are against Carolina, I think the number one key is if UC Saros plays like UC Saros that we've seen the last couple of months, that's going to be the number one formula, I think, for the Predators to pull off the upset. I mean, you're going to have other things that go right, and you're going to have some timely scoring, and special teams, as they always are going to be critical. But I think the number one key for the Predators is, can you get excellent goaltending from UC Saros? And if you can, I think you're going to give yourself a chance in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, it's the great equalizer, and in a lot of cases, in a lot of these upsets we talk about in this tournament, it's usually the number one factor, right? It's in a bunch of them. So I agree. Now, I also think that whatever the Preds did or Carolina didn't do Saturday to keep it from how it looked a lot of this year, if the Preds can duplicate that several times, then you give him more of a chance. I mean, he had two absolute, primo monster saves in that game and other good ones, but he had two. I mean, Carolina has put him in a position at other times this year where he's have to make 6, 7 of those.
Yes.
I think if that's the case, you're probably asking him to do too much. So I do think there's this, there's two things that have to go hand in hand here. But of course he's the top factor, the top person. And if you're Carolina fan, that's your top concern too, that he's just going to be on one, and you can outplay this team and still find yourself in tight, high-pressure games as the favorite in the third period, and we know how those sometimes go.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Ben texts in and says, if we make a decent run in these playoffs, how do we keep this team from getting content again like they did after the Cup run and the President's Trophy, especially with the same core that kind of gets fat and happy sometimes? I think you worry about that. You cross that bridge when you get there. I would hope that this young group that's coming in, that I think we've credited a lot with kind of infusing this veteran lineup with some energy. I mean, you would hope that continues to rub off on this team into the playoffs and that you can keep that going moving forward. I mean, there is pretty obviously a specific formula that it's taken for this team to get in the playoffs and for this group to win, and that is, number one, you need good goaltending, and they've gotten that. But number two, there's a certain level of work ethic. There's a certain level of commitment to doing the little things that you need on a nightly basis. And if this team, this particular group, if they don't bring that to the table, they just don't match up in this series. If they do, that's when you give yourself a chance. That's why they've been as successful as they've been the last couple of months. But I would hope at this point, even with the veterans, that way that you have to play has been kind of drilled into their head at this point because they've seen the results. They've seen it and experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, you would certainly hope so. You would hope it's sustainable. And I hear you on this group tends to be. I mean, look, I don't know. I think individually there are different situations. I think there are some guys in this core who got paid and it didn't affect how they played. Maybe there's a little less desperation with some players after they get paid. We've talked about this. This is it's a really interesting team. A whole bunch of guys having babies and marriages and things like that for the first time. I mean, you're a pro athlete. Whatever. It's life. It's what other people go through too. But yeah. I do think that's a factor in someone's life. I don't know that like everyone's collectively there was any point where people were like, we're good enough, everything's fine. But certainly when John Hines came in, he found some guys who weren't spilling it like he wanted to see, and it's taken him some time to get it where he wants to get it, and he got some help, frankly, to me, from some injuries and some young guys who came in hungry as all get out to kind of demonstrate to the veterans, see, this is what you need to do.
Well, they forced his hand. I mean, they forced the veterans' hand with these young guys coming in and playing the way they did. And honestly, like from the jump of this, I've been a little concerned about that. Like it shouldn't take young guys coming into the lineup and really lighting a fire under your veteran group. And I'm not saying that's 100% of what's happened. Like I think it's been a process involving a lot of different things. But I think it's pretty clear that when the injuries took place and everybody said, I remember after the Florida game, it was right before they went on that road trip that really started to turn things around with this group. And they got destroyed at Bridgestone Arena by Florida. And I was thinking to myself, like, is this the last game that we're going to see Matthias Ekholm play at home at Bridgestone Arena? You're going on an 8-game road trip. Things were looking bad. They didn't start off all that much better on the road trip, and then they figured it out, and UC Soros started to play really well. Pekka was playing well at the beginning of that too, and he started to turn things around. And the young guys came in, and that was the most obvious thing that people point to. I mean, Tolvanen was lighting it up at that time. You had Olivier in there. You had Trennan in there. On the back end, you had Jeremy Davies coming in. I mean, Alex Carrier. I mean, all these different guys came in and started to play really well. And you thought, okay, well, this looks like a completely different team. Why is that? Like, why are these young guys coming in and making so much of a difference? That, to me, was concerning for these veteran groups. Like, how has it taken this for you to get to this point and buy in? But I don't think there's any question that it has. And now that they've bought in, if I'm a player in that locker room, and even if I'm a veteran guy, I don't know how you could look around at your teammates right now and look around at this coaching staff and not admit that the way that he wants you to play is working. Like, I don't think that's that hard of a sell for this group moving forward.
It's not, but this is where I'll bring the comparison to 4 years ago, which is going to be overdone here in the next few days. But I thought that team, that run, yes, Pecorine, of course, but it was also – when you talk about a team that was gritty, and I mean, like I think of like Ekholm and Subban and some of the stuff they were doing, but even just like getting the random goal from Zolnarchuk or,
Vern
Fiddler gets you big, Cody McLeod gets you a big one against St. Louis. I mean, like that team had the intangibles going, and basically that same group with the same coach in the same locker room, a couple years later, didn't have that. So why? I mean, I think it's human nature probably to some extent, but I agree. It's not easy to just bottle this up and say this is what it's going to be from now on because these are the same people.
Yeah,
but right now they've got it, so see what you can do with it.
When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Nashville Predators and get into the game tonight for the Predators against Carolina. What does it mean, and could this be the last game that we see Pecorine play? Coming up tonight at Bridgestone Arena. We'll talk about it next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Don't miss the Cure for Our Friends Cystic Fibrosis Golf Tournament May the 15th at 12 Stones Golf Course in Goodlettsville. Some of the teams include retired Titans football players who will be hanging around after the tournament for the after party, which includes catered dinner and live music. Cure for Our Friends Golf Tournament still has need for silent auction items. More information can be found at cureforourfriends.org. Thank you to Dad's Towing, Mitchell Motors, and Nashville Wrecker Services for being the tournament sponsor for the 2021 Cure for Our Friends Cystic Fibrosis Golf Tournament. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And Joe, it could be a very interesting morning in Nashville and a very interesting day in Nashville. Not necessarily for the result of this game coming up between the Predators and the Hurricanes tonight at Bridgestone Arena, but I would expect that Pekka Rinne is in net tonight. Now, the Predators have wrapped things up. Jussi Saros was awesome once again on Saturday night. I would guess that he's going to be part of the group that could get a rest tonight for the Predators against the Hurricanes, and that would mean that Pekka Rinne would be in goal. And I guess the question is, could this be the last time that we see Pekka Rinne in goal? Now, there was a report I think on Friday that apparently Rinne has been in talks with teams in Finland about maybe playing next year and kind of closing out his career at home in Finland, and that maybe this could be the last year for Pekka in Nashville. We've talked about this all season long. Nobody knows what Pekka's going to do. Nobody knows if he's made a decision or if he's not, but I do think there is at least a decent chance that this could be the last time we see him play if he plays tonight against Carolina. What do you think of that? What do you think of the report coming out of Finland that maybe he's in talks to close out his career there? And if this is potentially the last game for Pekka Rinne, what do you think the environment will be like tonight at Bridgestone Arena?
Have you seen a fully translated
No.
copy of the report? Because, I mean, I guess from what I've been able to gather, you know, it's possible that he could play there when he's done, but there's no strong suggestion that, like, he is done.
Right.
Right? I mean, it's basically like if he wants to go over there when he's done, he can, no surprise, he can play with this team, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that it's much more than that. So it's still an interesting report at this point. And it's just kind of a strange situation. It would, because, you know, it's not the full building, and we don't know for sure. It's almost like, is there any chance that we'll get Pekka Rinne, you know, with availability this morning to say whether he's retiring or not? You know? I mean,
I doubt it.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, and it's I would be not surprised at all if he isn't sure.
Yeah.
So it's like tribute night, just in case this is it. You know.
Well, it's been interesting because, like, just looking around the league the last week or so, I mean, you have David Backes he's in Anaheim right now, and he played his last game against the Blues. And I mean, he was incredibly emotional. He did an interview with Darren Pang. It was awesome. He had Ryan Miller, the backup for the Ducks, play his last game the other night, and there was this cool video of him in the crowd, like, hugging his parents. I mean, it's really awesome. Like, it's one of those things where you can kind of see it coming for those guys, and they're not in prominent roles anymore, and it's kind of turned into what it is now with Pekka Rinne, who's not played in a while. It's been since the Tampa Bay game where they got shut out by Andre Vasilevsky a few weeks ago since he's played. And number one, I think it's important to get him in the game tonight because I think we forget this sometimes, but you could need it at some point moving into the playoffs here. And it should be nice to get him in a game and, you know, get those wheels turning again if you're Pekka Rinne heading into the playoffs. But I do wonder, like, if this is it for Pekka Rinne, how much emotion is going to be in that building tonight? Not only with the fans, I think we all know how much the fans love and appreciate Pekka Rinne, but, you know, Pekka's a guy he's worn his emotions on his sleeve for a while. It's been pretty clear to see what he's thinking out there at times. I remember the interview he did with Kara Hamma where he just kind of broke down on the bench there in the postgame. Like, I do wonder if we see any sort of emotion from Pekka Rinne tonight if he plays. And if we do, if maybe that tells you maybe what he's leaning and what he's thinking in this process.
Yeah, but nothing will tell you unless he tells you.
Yeah.
Which he'll be asked.
I'd be shocked.
Yeah. But it's also it's a different situation because normally like you'd be around, so someone would be asking him here and there something, right? Yep. And instead now it's very much okay. Here's the player or two who are available, and they're not. It's not going to be him. He's not been playing, so he's sort of just been isolated from the world here. Even if he were the backup in a regular type of season, it wouldn't.
You could talk to him every morning.
Yeah,
if you want to.
Right. It wouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
So it's all the circumstances are very unique and a bit strange. But listen, to me, it's like, hey, Pecorine may play 2 more years after this, but it's not a bad thing to give him a standing O, for what is, I mean, it's still a career achievement appreciation opportunity.
Well, I think if you're a fan going to the game tonight or watching the game or listening to the game, I think you've got to approach it like this is going to be his last game until you know otherwise. Like, I think that's the way you've really got to approach it if you're a Predators fan tonight. So I'm interested to see what the atmosphere is going to be like. Joey from Gallatin on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, I suspect Bridgestone will be vibrating all night. I've got goosebumps just thinking about the standing O that he's going to get. He's a living legend around these parts, and we're going to miss Pekka when he's done. Andrew from Dover says, I'd love for Rene to sign 1 more year and have a farewell tour next season. I've wondered about that. It's different now a little bit with fans starting to come back in the building, and there's a great environment Saturday night. I'm sure there'll be another good environment tonight for the Predators against Carolina. But I have wondered, if you're Pekka, do you want 1 more shot at quote-unquote a normal time, like a normal arena? I do wonder what he thinks about that.
Yeah, and there's obviously the factor of fatherhood.
Yep.
Talked about that with other guys. Now, these other guys we're talking about are having, they are young fathers, and he's an older father, so he's right around the time of retirement. So how much of that is a factor? Do you want to go out on the road next year for 41 games in this early time of parenthood? There's one thing. And I think another thing is just the discussion that we constantly have is, okay, what does this run mean? Like, what could next year's team be? If next year's team played like this all year, what would it be? Where does it rate in the league? And if he feels like this team could maybe be really good next year, even though he's clearly the 2, is that attractive to come back for that, to be a part of that? I don't know.
Mickey on YouTube says Pekka would be going to the Finnish League if he doesn't get the cup this year, so he can't be taken by Seattle, and the Preds can get him back to technically retire as a Pred for his entire career. Seattle can't take Pekka Rinne. His contract expires. So Seattle, there's no chance Seattle's going to end up with Pekka Rinne. I can promise you that. Seattle, Pekka Rinne is not going to play for Seattle.
Good thought, though.
It is a good thought. Both Ben on our text line and Josh on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, say play Saros tonight. Maybe the rest is too much. You don't want him off for too long heading into the playoffs, that they would play Saros tonight and not have Pekka play tonight because you don't want Saros basically having a week off at that point.
Before the show, I said there's got to be at least some, as a coach,
consideration,
some question of, okay, what's a good amount of time off? To me, I think not having him out there in this meaningless game and giving him a little bit extra time, I think sounds good.
Yeah.
I think if it was, we talked about this last week, had it turned out a different way, it could have been like Pekka Rinne Saturday, right? Okay. Well, would you do both? Would you give him a week and a half? That sounds like too much. But I feel like this is just about the right amount of time. Sit him down, take a break, rest up, come back. So, we think that the first game is Saturday then? I've seen conflicting things on this.
I think it's going to be either Saturday or Sunday, but I don't know. This whole thing's weird.
Because obviously some divisions are, it's going to be quite staggered, actually.
Yeah.
The way to get all the games in and everything.
Yeah.
Well, the longer that Calgary remains in the hunt, the more that's going to push off the Canadian bracket, because Calgary plays Vancouver in regular season games next week.
Yeah.
Is that one of your weekly winners games finally coming back around? Is that? I think it might be, right?
What do you mean?
Huh? Well, you had a weekly winner game that got canceled. That still has to be made up.
That was Vancouver game. That was Vancouver-Edmonton.
That was Vancouver-Edmonton. Yeah.
I mean, we can count it if you want.
If it's a loss, we'll count it.
Yes, if it's a win, we're not.
Okay.
That's how we're operating here on the show. Look, I think it's going to be interesting to see. All right, Porth, what do you think the environment is going to be like tonight at Bridgestone Arena if Pekka's in net?
It's going to be like the elephant in the arena.
Yeah.
Where you don't know, but you think you might know.
Yeah.
That's the last time you'll see 35 between the pipes. And I'll say this. I had that thought come to mind a couple times last week, especially while you guys were talking about it. And I don't really want to think about what tonight could be for 35 because of what he's meant for this franchise. That's going to be the first number retired inside Bridgestone Arena. And to know that this could be it tonight is kind of hard to believe, actually.
What percentage would you guys be at right now? Retire or not retire?
I'm over 50. I'm somewhere near 60% he retires. I don't know anything. I'm just guessing.
I agree.
About 60-40?
Maybe 70-30. Gut feel.
Last I heard from Willie Donick, 70-30 the other way.
Yeah.
So I'll go 50-50. I have no idea.
But how much has this last month maybe swayed him? The fact that UC Saros has gotten every game. I mean, he's a competitor. He wants to play.
Yeah, but don't you think that even going into this year, he had an idea that it was probably going that way?
I mean, the way he's been
probably
talking.
not to this extent.
Right.
I mean, he's not playing at all.
Yeah.
I don't think he thought that was going to be the case.
Well,
now, he also probably didn't envision that UC Saros is going to be operating in a 950 save percentage either.
Exactly. There's no choice. I mean, certainly he understands why the decision would be made. In an 82 game, it's funny because I think he still got 20 starts this year, right?
Yeah.
He got 20 starts. In an 82 game season, the backup goalie he'd get 30 starts next year, right?
In the neighborhood. 25, 30, somewhere around there.
I do think like the trajectory. I mean, I think if it was going the way it was going, be pretty easy. Right? Like you don't want to be the two also for a total teardown.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know. I'm gonna be really interested if he plays to hear what he says about it all too. And we know Pekka always very thoughtful. I'm sure it's not going to be like, guys, to let you know, thank you. This was my retirement game. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Good to see you all. Take care.
Virtually.
And the funny thing is, too, this could be this night, and he could have this reception, and it could be this memorable night. And at some point in this series, he could be coming out in relief and winning a game with a packed house.
I mean, you're one play away from being in there if you're him. I mean, I think you've always got to keep that in mind. I mean, wasn't it Carolina where Saros got hurt this year? He got elbowed in the head. All of a sudden, Peck is in there for 2 weeks. You never know when it's going to be it, but it certainly feels like this could be the last time we see him play tonight. So I'm very fascinated, number one, to see if he plays. I think he will. And number two, to see what that environment is going to be like tonight at Bridgestone Arena. When we come back, it's time for the Rex Rant here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Joe Rexrode has you covered. That's coming up next here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
The time is now for the Rex Rant.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
On Robby and Rexrode, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Can you take me higher? Yeah, the beautiful dulcet tones of Creed bringing us back in on the program here today for the Rex Rant. And it is time, as it is every Monday at 7:45, for the Rex Rant. And Joe Rexrode really loving the Creed coming back in there, playing the air guitar on the stream that you can catch on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. You fired up for the Rex Rant today? That Creed get you going there a little bit?
I just heard the news today. Great band.
Great
awesome.
Band.
So excited.
Shout out to Scott Stapp.
Yeah, you gotta love them. Do they live in Nashville?
Probably. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Who doesn't live in Nashville nowadays?
I just assume artists both good, bad, active, washed up. We've got them all, right?
We do.
So sorry, Scott, your band sucks. So look, I feel like the Rex Rant. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm not necessarily going to start screaming and stuff, But I've got some beef with people. So all right, let me tell you a story. A lot of these stories go back to Brennan's Flag Football League. Tough loss in the semifinals this week. Boy, parents, please stop yelling at the refs.
Going back
stop
to
yelling.
the rant a couple weeks ago, that's not improved much.
No one bumped anyone, but
that's
please,
good.
it's rec flag football. But anyway, tough loss, good game, mostly good sportsmanship out there. Hey, like I said, the sportsmanship thing, it's a daily grind in the household. But I was there, and I was watching carefully, but I did notice on Twitter, Richard G. West.
Yes.
Okay, so, and I don't know, I don't follow this account, but it came across my timeline. Richard G. West, which is at RGW_news. He tweeted, new Alabama transfer linebacker Henry Toto posted this on his Instagram today, but deleted it shortly after. So it's like a picture of this sweet, is that a Mustang? I think it's a sweet red Mustang, and it was like, thank you for everything, Heavenly Father, roll tide, on his Instagram. So I thought it was funny, and so I quote tweeted it and said something like, I said, Saban knows how to get it done, okay? So this turns into and then I'm off my phone for a while watching the game, go get some food, and it turned all
the Dodge Challenger, by the way.
Oh, you're right. That's not a Mustang. Sorry.
Anyway, continue.
Rant about my lack of car knowledge. But I go back a little bit later, and I've got Alabama fans just all over me. Also, I've been subtweeted since then by media. First of all, look, man, if I fall for a fake account that says a meteor is going to kill us all, then you can get mad at me, okay? If I fall for a fake account that's Nashville, all the highways are locked down or whatever. If I fall for a fake account that has some hilarious thing about recruiting cheating, shut up. I don't care. Subtweeting me, Justin Beasley. But the Bama fans in particular, one of them said I will be sued for slander.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I was like, well, I'm going to sue you for being an idiot on Twitter. Okay, you're going to hear from my lawyer. Now, here's the thing, Alabama fans. And as you go back and forth on this stuff, do you actually think that your program doesn't cheat? Do you actually think that there's
they do,
no
yes.
Coach Saban, it's a winning environment, the family atmosphere. Listen, if you are at this level of college football where you have 3-year players every year who come in, who go right to the NFL for 3 years and could go anywhere and are recruited by Clemson and by Ohio State and LSU and Georgia and Auburn and Alabama and Michigan, whoever you want, Texas A&M, your program cheats, okay? I want you to know this. There is some extra money that is going. Why do you think so many recruits take it down to the very end? Is it just because it's just, it's hard to, I can't decide. That's tough. I mean, I know I could have made this decision months ago, but for whatever reason, I'm going to take it down to the very end. I just feel I understand some people like, having the press conference. You can have the press conference anytime. You can play the hat game at any point. And yet so many of the very, very best recruits go all the way to the very, very – why do you think that is? Do you think that maybe there's conversations going on between different programs and those players and their families and their representatives about what the compensation will be?
I think maybe so.
I mean, get a clue. Look, I have no idea what Henry Toto got or didn't get or whatever. It's not about an individual. It happens. It's absolutely factual that it happens. And I hope someday we can get to the point where, like, guys in the NFL, you get it here and there, and just talk about all this. It's hilarious. I mean, and the thing is, if you're around a college campus, you see this stuff, it's like, come on, give me a break. And it should happen. And they should cheat. And they should get as much money as they can get right now because they are helping make billions in an industry. And the top players are a big part of that. And it is not just any scrub goes out there and wears the Alabama jersey and people are going to show up. No. The top players deserve that. And I just want all fans to embrace cheating. Just embrace cheating. Your program cheats. They do it smartly. They don't.
Most of them.
It's not hard. You have to be a total idiot to get caught.
Well,
exactly. I understand. But also, that's the point, too, is that you better win. Because Will Wade this weekend picked up one of the top recruits in the country, Adam Miller from Illinois. He just picked up one of the top bigs in the country. So he's got a recruit and a transfer coming in. He's on a roll, and he's got his job. And we know what the deal is with Will Wade. So win and cheat.
An FBI agent in the backyard just watching him do it all. It's fun stuff.
Sure. If you win, it's fine. If you lose and cheat, then your school may want to look into you, and then you've got a problem. Yeah. So cheat the right way. Nick Saban cheats the right way. It's great. Is that slander? Am I going?
No, I don't think so.
Is this slander? I don't know.
It is funny though because I've seen that a lot from Bama fans. Like especially like even when Pruitt was going through his stuff, like cheating, Vols over there cheating. I'm like, okay, man, like let's be real here. And Nick Saban's great. He's the greatest coach of all time in college football.
No question.
Probably one of the greatest coaches of all time in any sport. Let's not act like he's just out there. All these rules are being followed.
Well, and let me clarify on Nick Saban. And what he does, they don't mess with it. It's like it's
right. There's a system in place.
Doesn't do anything. Doesn't have to do anything. Yes, I mean, if you have it set up right, it's all there for you, and then the right people make the negotiations.
Right.
I mean, come on. Look, I hope this all comes to light with name, image, likeness. I really do, because it would be great to see this play out. I fear that the NCAA, which is now being pushed to do it, is going to. It's gonna be a half measure, and so we're still gonna have this stuff where let's get it all out there. Why not?
I agree,
and I think more players are gonna benefit from this. But the top players, I mean, they are pursued heavily, and they make the difference. A Justin Fields stays at Georgia, they win a national championship. He goes to Ohio State, they almost win a couple players at the very top of the pyramid make all the difference. Trevor Lawrence makes all the difference in the world. So. Let's be realistic.
I like that. That's a good addition of the Rex Rant. Henry Toto and the fake Dodge Challenger leading you to the Rex Rant today. By the way,
Mustang.
Or Mustang. What did you think of
Toto?
They
kind of look alike, right?
Going to Alabama. I don't think a very big surprise there.
Yeah, Ohio State was in there too.
He was it, yeah.
Yeah, he picked Alabama.
Why?
Yeah, hey, look, man. There's other reasons.
Oh yeah.
People go to Alabama to win championships, Ohio State to win championships, and he's got a chance. And anybody who thinks Henry Toto isn't good enough to go right in there and stand out for them, you're wrong.
He'll be playing.
Another interesting thing is, of course, right now he can't play next year.
I know.
But the expectation is that next month that will change. Full expectation, or else he doesn't make this decision right now. And he's going to be on the field for them next year, and he's going to be really good, and it's just another twist of the knife for Vols fans. But Juwan Mitchell is a nice pickup from Texas. Yeah. So there you go.
When we come back, we'll be joined by Corey Curtis from News 2. We'll get into the Predators a little bit heavier with him, looking ahead to this series against Carolina. All that coming up. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesale Link Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com. Here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing a big Predators win on Saturday. They're in the playoffs for the 7th consecutive season, and to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Corey Curtis from News 2. Corey, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
I am alive. How's that sound?
Well, that is a great start. That's always step number one.
It's helpful.
Corey, what did you think of the game Saturday night for the Predators against Carolina? And when you factor in the entire season and the ups and downs that we saw, what kind of an accomplishment is this for the Predators to make the playoffs with this group?
Well, first off, it's a great accomplishment. I mean, we've seen the numbers, less than a 1% chance of getting in at one point. But I think the bigger story for me, and it goes to the game as well, is the transformation of the culture of a hockey team. It's not something you generally see happen during a season. And, you know, culturally, they had to change. I mean, they got soft. They just did. They just got soft. And all those youngsters came up and reset the bar for how hard this team was going to play and the things they were going to do to win hockey games. How many goals do they score in front of the net now? I mean, a ton. They do the hard stuff. You know, the forecheck is so much stronger. And then, you know, I think winning that game, you know, everybody's going to point to finally beating Carolina and having to play them in the playoffs. Yeah, that's important. But I think it's also important, you know, to complete the story of the season that they earned their way in. They didn't back their way in. They didn't just beat a team to get to the playoffs. They beat one of the probably 3 or 4 very best teams in hockey to get there in a game that looked and felt like a playoff game. I mean, I can't really say enough positive things about it.
So do you look at this, it's basically 2 months now, just about 2 months, Corey,
yeah,
and say, okay, this is sustainable, this is certainly it's a massive change in trajectory, but is it a trajectory that gives you optimism both for the series to come and for beyond?
Well, I mean, I think 2 months isn't a streak, okay? 2 months isn't you're hot. And like I said, they changed the way they play the game. And that's the big difference. It wasn't like, hey, they're going along and they got hot and they won 8 out of 10 and then they dropped, 5 in the next 5. This is the way they play now. I'm not saying that for like 3 weeks or so. And when this is the way you play, you always give yourself a chance to win. And that's what they do. I mean, even when they lost at Columbus, they were tied in the third period. I mean, they were right there with a chance to win the game. Didn't do it, but they were right there. And so, I am encouraged for the long-term prognosis of the hockey team because, under John Hines and with some of these youngsters coming up, if this is the way they continue to play, they'll continue to be a good hockey team. Can they get better? Sure. I mean, sure, there's things they can do to get better. Now, as for the next series, look, they could play out of their minds great and lose in 5 or 6. But you know what? So could 90% of the NHL. They're playing one of the very best teams in the league. And that's why I don't get caught up with people who say, oh, well, if they don't win a series, it's all for nothing. That's not true at all. You get in to give yourself a chance, and then you give it your best swing. And if you give it your best swing and you don't make it, then you don't make it. But you got to understand, you're playing one of the favorites to win the Stanley Cup. And you could play great and lose. And we could say the same thing. If Tampa Bay played Carolina in the first round, they could play great and lose. And that wouldn't make their season a failure. It just means they ran into a really good hockey team. And I'm not setting up for the Preds to fail. I'm just setting up for people to take a reasonable look at it, that they're playing a really good hockey team, and one of these hockey teams isn't going to move on.
Corey Curtis from News 2 on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And, Corey, as you're well aware, the playoffs, a much different game in the NHL than the regular season. Mm-hmm. And UC Saros does not have a ton of playoff experience. He's come in and spared Picarini in the past and also, played the series last year against Arizona as well in the qualifying round. He's been awesome as of late. You've heard people make arguments about him being maybe in the Hart Trophy conversation behind Connor McDavid, who absolutely is going to win. Given that he's not got a big playoff sample size, but also factoring in the way that he's played, where's your confidence level in UC Saros heading into this series against Carolina?
Oh, I have a ton of confidence in UC Saros. I mean, I go back to the Stanley Cup a few years ago when he came in. The moment was never too big for him. There were. I know he came into that last game when it was 2-0, and there were other games where he came in and he kind of stemmed the tide. There was never a moment where he came off the bench and was just like a deer in headlights. And he's played some very big games, some playoff type games here. Down the stretch, like I said, last season, that's a different team playing a different way in front of him, and so I am not concerned about UC Saros headed into the series. Does that mean I think he's going to lock down and sweep Carolina? No, I don't. But I think he'll give them a chance to win because like I say, this is how this team plays. And yes, UC Saros is in a hot streak. He is in a zone. He is playing fantastic hockey. But, we also know he's a good goaltender who gives his team a chance to win, and he can erase some mistakes. But they're also, for the most part, playing a heck of a lot better in front of him. And that's, I don't know that gets talked about enough. I have people who tell me that the only difference between this team at the beginning of the season and now is a hot goalie. And I just think that's utter nonsense. The way they're playing in front of him is a lot better as well. But there's no taking away from how hot he is. Can he stay that hot against some of the best teams in the league? Because you think if you manage somehow to get Carolina, you're going to get Florida or Tampa. Yeah. And that's a tough call to try to get through those two. But that's what the call is, and we'll see if they're up to it or not.
Yeah, I'm glad you called that out as nonsense. It's only the goalie stuff is. It's just not true. This team is playing.
I can't even have that conversation.
Yeah,
I can't.
Yeah, it's out there. So Corey, we've talked about, first of all, just what a strange, year it is. I mean, sometimes it comes out like you think about it more, and I think about it more with the Pecorine thing. Just the fact that we're speculating on him, his future. We're speculating on whether this could be like a tribute game. And, it's been weeks since anyone's heard from him just because that's how things are. There's no access in this environment to even broach the topic. But where are you on the speculation spectrum on Pecorine? Do you think tonight is going to end up being one we look back at as, the tribute night for him?
Well, whatever he decides, I hope it's for the very best for him because he is unquestionably one of my 5 favorite athletes that I've ever covered. I mean, just from being a great player, a heck of a nice guy, a first-class individual, and a guy who you would ask a straight question to, and he would give you a straight answer. I mean, he to me has been as good as they come. And look, if they don't start him tonight, that's just the craziest thing I've ever seen. So I am excited to see him get back in the crease. If it is his last game here, it's his last game here. I guess is there a report about him going and playing in the Finnish league or something next year as a possibility? And look, he's a dad now, and I get it. When you have kids, it changes things. It does. It changes things. But if he believes in this hockey team and its future next year, maybe he does come back. But I don't think we as a city and the fan base can do that. I think you have to appreciate tonight for what it possibly could be, and treat it like that. And then if he does come back next year, just be thankful. But I think tonight is a great night to say thank you, for everything he has meant to this team, to the city and to the sport. I go back to when this team almost left for Hamilton. He was the guy who said, "I'm not leaving. This is my team, this is my city, and this is where I want to be." And he put his stake down, and he's part of the reason, a big part of the reason for the way the last 10, 15 years have been.
Corey, last thing for you here. What do you think of the Matt Duchene situation right now for the Predators? He was essentially benched the other night in Columbus. He's back in the lineup on Saturday, right now on the third line on the wing. What do you make of all this? How do you think the Predators handle this, both in the short term, trying to go through this playoff run, but also the long term as well, with 5 more years left on his deal after this season?
Well, it's a tough call, and it's disappointing. I mean, they tried getting him here for a long time. And, I've watched him play, and I feel like the effort is there much of the time. but the results aren't. They just aren't. They have other guys who are producing more. And whether you're paying him, what's he make, $8 million a year?
Yep.
Whether you're paying him $8 million a year to sit and watch or to play, and I know it's painful to have a guy making $8 million a year sit and watch, but you're still paying him $8 million a year, and the goal is to win the game. Okay? And so if he has to watch for you to win the game, then that's what has to happen. And those are the tough calls that John Hines has made and has to make, because those are the ones you have to stand by, though, and those are tough ones for David Poile, I'm sure, to have to stomach, because he's got to tell ownership about it and either support or not support his head coach's call on that. I mean, there's only one person who can change the trajectory of this, and that's Matt Duchene. And I don't know if it's he not fitting in or if he's just clutching the stick too hard, because he has had opportunities where you think he's going to score, but he doesn't. And we know he's talented. But like I said, there just have been guys who have produced more. I mean, does Eric Halla have the talent base of Matt Duchene? No. But what has Eric Halla done the last 3 weeks? I mean, he's torn it up. He's been a house of fire out there. And, that's what they need. And if he could get it going in the playoffs, I mean, gosh, that would be tremendous. But I don't know how long that leash can be. That's it's one of those times where you don't envy being a head coach. And David Poile has things to figure out with a couple of these contracts and with the expansion draft. If he can free himself from at least one of these deals that's not looking so great right now, he can give himself some options. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens and what the appetite is out there, for a couple of these guys that they might be willing to part ways with.
Corey Curtis from News 2 has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Joins us every Monday at 8 o'clock. Corey, great stuff as always, man. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning.
All right. Thank you very much. 7 years in a row.
Yeah.
Like I said, that doesn't happen by accident. So good stuff.
Absolutely. Corey Curtis, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the Predators. Look back at a great game on Saturday night. The Predators punched their ticket and clinched the playoffs for the 7th consecutive year. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
comes over on the Predators' right side for Howla. He got covered. Then Bean holds it in left point. Try to pass across, comes to Howla. Shooting for the empty net. He scores! Eric Howla at 18:57 makes it 3-1 Nashville. 1 second, and that will do it. And the Predators, folks, have made the playoffs for the 7th consecutive year. They beat Carolina here tonight, 3-1.
What a ride.
What a win for the Predators on Saturday night. They get it done 3-1 against the Carolina Hurricanes, punching their ticket to the Stanley Cup playoffs for the 7th consecutive season. And, Joe, what a game it was on Saturday night. You had a Predators team that knew the situation heading into the game. Dallas had won the night before against Tampa Bay, so you had to approach that game as a must-win game if you're the Predators. I thought they did that. Carolina, I was interested to see how they would approach that game with Dallas winning against Tampa Bay on Friday. That means that Carolina had clinched the division by the time puck dropped on Saturday against the Predators. Carolina, at least at that point, iced their normal lineup and, by all indications, trying to go out there and win the game, still have the President's Trophy that they're trying to go win. I thought the Predators, especially in the first two periods, they played really well. I mean, you got a great play made by Granlund in the second period to spring free Luke Cunnin, puts the Predators up 1-0. Another great pass by Granlund in the third to give them a 2-0 lead for Cunnin on the breakaway there. But really, even outside of those two goals, I thought the Predators were playing pretty well. They had their chances. Now, I will say, power play did not look all that great on Saturday for the Predators against Carolina, but by and large, 5-on-5. I thought the Predators played really well. They hold on at the end. Carolina makes it close, 2-1 on a goal by Martin Geekie, which is one of the great names in hockey. And then Eric Hawla seals the deal with the empty net goal to make it 3-1, and that was that. And you could kind of feel a collective sigh of relief in Bridgestone Arena after the Hawla goal goes in. But all in all, I thought a pretty good night for the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, they stepped up. They were impressive. I thought they controlled play. I mean, it was easily the best performance since Carolina this year, which does lead to the question, how much did Carolina care? They had their full lineup. They're playing for the President's Trophy. Well, it's going to be what? It's going to be them or Vegas, right? For the President's Trophy, essentially.
Likely.
Pretty much. Which I think is worth going after. I don't buy the curse thing. Maybe Rod Brindamore does. But he played his whole lineup, and the Preds handled them like they haven't, for a sustained period of time. I mean, that's easily the best game they've played against them, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's you're going to get into Carolina picked its opponent, and Carolina, you got to take their foot off the gas a little bit, and you wait and see what they do in game one. There have been some stretches of utter dominance for Carolina against Nashville this year that, I think lead you to wonder about how it will look in a playoff series. But I've got to think that builds confidence, even if there's desperation on one side and it's not desperation on the other side. There is a difference there. That makes a difference. But I still think if you're the Predators, you've got to not only be happy with getting there and celebrate that briefly, but you also have got to get a little bit of confidence from beating that team in a game that did count.
Yeah, I think so too. There's got to be some confidence that you take away from that. And I thought even in the game where he didn't have to do a ton. There were a couple of saves that jump out to me for UC Saros that were just incredible. You got a 3-on-1 that he makes a save on late in the second period. Earlier in the game, makes a big save on a 2-on-1 odd man rush, and both times, he's just basically pushing as hard as he can to go across the crease and take away the net, and he's able to get his body on the puck. One case, a blocker on the puck. He was awesome in that game. I thought really, though, to me, the story that just kept coming back and back was the fourth line and how good they were. Trennan took a bad penalty in that game. It was not a good hit, puts themselves shorthanded, and you never want to put that Carolina team on the power play. So it was not great. Now, they killed that penalty off, looked pretty good on that penalty kill there. But other than that, I thought the fourth line, once again, both defensively, where they've been strong really for the most part the last couple of months, and also offensively as well, creating some chances, creating some looks, some odd man rushes. Tanner Jeannot continues to get in there, put his nose in there, and get to the front of the net. To me, the story or part of the story once again was just how good that fourth line was and continues to be for this group.
I mean, can we even call them a fourth line anymore?
I don't know.
If they had the most time on the ice, don't we?
They're the first line?
It's not the fourth line. It's the Herd line.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Herd line. But, you think of that checking line as your fourth line, but how many teams use that line more than any other line?
Yeah. Not very many, I can tell you. Probably not any.
Right? I mean, and it was a clear choice.
Yeah.
What was the breakdown? I saw Alex Doherty tweeted that out the other night.
I'll have to go back and look at the numbers.
They were like 17 plus, and I think the next closest was 13.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not your fourth line.
Pretty significant. That's a pretty significant gap right there. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Taking your thoughts all show long on the Nashville Predators. Nate texting in, I feel like it's dangerous for teams to take their foot off the gas, even if it's 2 meaningless games. What do y'all think about that?
Well, Rod Brindamore said exactly that going into the game.
Yeah.
I mean, he was adamant that habits and winning, and it's got to now. Tonight will be interesting. Now, see, that's the thing. Actually, Carolina has more to play for than Nashville has nothing to play for.
Right.
Nothing. Carolina, President's Trophy is there. That's home ice for as long as you play, and Carolina plans on playing for a long time. So that's an interesting dynamic, too. Like, they actually have more incentive tonight.
It is, but I also wonder, like, how do you weigh the risk-reward if you're Brindamore? Because you just lost somebody the game before. I mean, that was, kind of under the radar Saturday night, but depending on how severe it is, could be a pretty big story moving forward is what happens with Jacob Slavin. He's a great defenseman in this league. He's the number one guy for Carolina, and he left the game after the first period on Saturday night. And Brindamore, after the game, I mean, he talked about, he doesn't know exactly what it is, said they took him out as a precaution, but he's definitely tweaked something. And if that's something where that keeps you out of the lineup for a week or a week and a half, that's a pretty big deal heading into this series. So I wonder if you're Rod Brindamore tonight, how much do you weigh the risk-reward of trying to go for the President's Trophy while also trying to keep the guys you have in your lineup healthy heading into the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I would err on the side of let's get intact to this series and not lose anyone else.
Yeah.
So you think maybe we see very different lineups for these teams?
I think so. Like, it was interesting to hear John Hines after the game the other night because they've been so focused on just trying to get in. And now that they've gotten in, I think this is an opportunity for the Predators to give some guys a break, both physically, which I think you need at this point, but also mentally as well. Like they've been in this grind and this playoff mode essentially for 2 months at this point. And I think it could do some guys some good to kind of get away from that for a little bit before you have to reset and go back in the playoffs later this week. Like, to me, like I'm looking at the lineup right now, Matt Duchene's in there tonight. Pekka's in there tonight. I'm probably leaving Granlund out. I'm probably leaving Forsberg out. I know Arvidsson's day-to-day, and I think some would like to see him maybe get some games under him before he gets back in the playoffs. There's no way in the world I'm playing Victor Arvidsson tonight. Just go back in the playoffs and ride from there. Like I'm interested to see how many veteran guys could be out tonight, how much rest takes place. There's no way I'm playing Roman Josi tonight either if I'm the Predators. I'm fascinated to see how they handle this.
Yeah, you can't take everyone out.
No.
Can you?
I don't think so. I think it's against the rules.
It's an interesting, you can see it the other night. I mean, I'm thinking, especially when that fourth line was out there, they really bother opponents.
They do.
As you may notice. And they were bothering the Hurricanes. And so you start building up that dislike. Tonight's another chance for that. But, again, with maybe some guys who aren't going to see each other moving forward. But then you get into the series. I mean, the idea of 9 straight games between two teams.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's and it's already been that kind of year, obviously, where you see the same 7 teams over and over again, and you probably dislike them more than you did moving forward.
I wonder if there's a chance we could see Philip Tomasino tonight, just based on the lineup, what I think could happen in terms of rest. I wonder if there's a chance that maybe he makes his NHL debut tonight. I'd be interested to see.
Tomasino's debut, Rene's swan song in one night.
Could be.
That'd be worth watching.
It'd be a heck of a storyline heading into that game. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Predators, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. What do you think of the Predators and this matchup in the first round against the Carolina Hurricanes? How much confidence do you have heading into this series? We'll discuss that coming up next. 102.5 The Game and T-Mobile have partnered up to give you a chance to experience a Nashville SC game this season. Tune in later today and every Monday to Darren, Donick, and Chase for the keyword to text in to win. Good luck from 102.5 The Game, T-Mobile, and Nashville SC. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Hey, John, I was just wondering, with this game and obviously have another game Monday, is there a confidence-building factor here? I mean, I know the biggest thing here is getting into the playoffs tonight, but is there a chance here to build confidence after struggling against that team, for most of the season?
Yeah, Joe, I think tonight was a big was a step in the right direction in that sense where, we had to win to get in. We had to win the game, which what we knew, but also, talked with the guys a lot about it was there's a certain way that we need to play. And I thought the assistant coaches did an excellent job coming up with a few different things over the last couple of days to present to the guys today. And, I thought the way that we competed, the way that we played, that was one where you had to win to get in. and you're also playing the team that you're going to play, and we thought we played a pretty good game here tonight. So, things get elevated in the playoffs, but, I think this is a good step for a first foundation here.
That was Predators head coach John Hynes after the win for the Predators on Saturday night, 3-1 against Carolina, that propels the Predators into the playoffs. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Taking your thoughts on the Predators on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Andrew on the text line says, if Pekka's playing his last game, you can't rest the Stars and lose the game in Pekka's last game. Yossi's plays tonight. I don't think you can approach it that way if you're the coach.
Yeah. Listen, if it's – you don't know if it's his – maybe you do. Maybe Pekka goes to John Hynes today and says, this is it for me, John. Win one for the Pecker. Oh, I can't say that. Win one for the – oh, God. Oh, my gosh.
Well, this segment would immediately downhill.
I've just completely stepped in it. I was going to say for the Renner, too.
Oh, God.
That was completely I swear that was unintentional. Ryan Porth can't even. He won't be able to do the show the rest of the. He's done. You get my point.
I do.
All right, let's move on.
All right.
God.
So what do you think?
Skiatika.
If you know it's Pekka's last game, do you keep the whole lineup in there tonight?
Who texted this?
Andrew,
you got me in trouble. No, you don't build your lineup around like we have to win this game for the Renner. Okay? You make decisions based on longevity, health. You don't mess with guys who shouldn't be out there, and you hope he wins and you hope you have a nice tribute, and he might give up 5 goals and it's still a nice tribute. And Porth is still unable to function in the control room.
Well, also, the more I think about it, I don't know that Pekka's made a decision. So, yes, as a fan, I think you view this as, until I'm told otherwise, I'm treating this like this is Pekka Rinne's last game. Because you think about the playoffs, it's probably going to be Jussi Saros the whole time unless something goes bad in the game or unless he gets hurt. So, you got to go into the playoffs thinking you're probably going to see Saros the whole time. Until you are told that Rinne is coming back next year with the Predators, if I'm a fan, I'm thinking that this is the last time I see him. So I think it's going to be a great environment tonight at Bridgestone Arena. I do think they're going to start him. I know people disagree with that. Someone on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, saying, if you give Saros tonight off, it'll be basically a week at that point between starts and between action for Saros. Is that too long off for Saros? I don't think so. I think it would be good to get him a break. He's been in a grind the last couple of months. He'll get some work this week in practice. I think he'll be fine as you move forward. I think they'll start Pekka tonight. I think they should start Pekka tonight. And I'm interested to see what the lineup looks around him. But to the point of the texter, I don't think if you're John Hynes, if you think it's beneficial to rest Jussi or rest anybody else under these circumstances just because it could be Rinne's last game, I don't think you can put somebody in just for that.
No.
What happens if you're putting Jussi in there and then he gets hurt in the second period? Look pretty dumb after that.
Right. Arvidsson's 85% or whatever, and it's we got to win one for Pekka. Stop it. You can't do it. You can't think of it that way. You can't.
You cannot. So what do you think of this matchup for the Predators against Carolina? And obviously, things have not gone overly well against the Hurricanes. They are 1-5-1. I'm interested to see what this game could look like because I think you could see some guys on both teams getting some rest tonight, so I don't put a ton of stock into this game heading into the playoffs. The success has not been there, and I talked about it earlier in the show. You're going to see predictions start to come out in the coming days here this week. Looking ahead at the playoffs and the matchups that are taking place, you are not going to see very many people pick the Nashville Predators to win this series. What do you think of this matchup for the Predators against Carolina, and did the way they played against Carolina on Saturday night influence the way you view this matchup at all?
A little, but I'm cautious. I'm cautious because it hasn't been good at all. It's been to the point Now, within that same game, they had a much better second period, but the first period of the game a couple weeks ago, where it really looked like varsity against JV. And when Carolina gets it going, the way they move the puck, with their speed, with their aggressiveness, there are times when it has looked like a terrible matchup for Nashville.
Yeah.
It looked a lot better Saturday night. It was Carolina's full lineup. So what does that mean? I think it means something, but I'm still hesitant. The President's Trophy is a nice thing to go after, but they've won the division, and the desperation of trying to get in the playoffs versus we'd love to win the President's Trophy, it's just different.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Garland texting in saying, I think you play everybody. You crush Carolina tonight, make them wonder about next week. I understand resting players for the playoffs, but we've been in playoff mode for the last 30 games. I think it's part of why you rest them. It's because you have been in playoff mode for the last 30 games. But what do you think of the idea that Garland threw out there of, hey, just go after Carolina again tonight and maybe start to plant a seed of doubt in their head heading into the playoffs?
Yeah, I think there's certainly there are benefits to winning, to playing well, to sustaining good play against them. And to Rod Brindamore's point, even before last game, there are concerns about bad habits, about things going the wrong way. But I still think ultimately you got to make the smarter choice. If there's anybody either that you feel like you've got to protect or who's a little bit banged up, I think you've got to think along those lines.
Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome him, Jim from Nolansville, who wants to weigh in. Jim, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, talking about the herd line, we got Matthew Olivier also coming back next year, and this can permeate the lineup, I feel, for next year also. Olivier can go on another line perhaps, and makes a very competitive, exciting training camp for us for next year. And I think Hines gets a lot of credit for all of this. And again, just like last year, Duchesne and Johansson, they have a chance to step up in these playoffs. We need their leadership and some goals from them. And they each got a goal last year, but, it just wasn't enough. And there was one year when Leguan had 9 goals in the season, and Trotz told him, "You can step up now in the playoffs." And I forget if he did get a lot of goals, but we used to have Colin Wilson do all that too. But if they can step up, then I would try to maybe retain them and bring Granny back. But if one of them has to go, then I would say we have to get rid of one of them and keep Granny and look to these young kids and stuff. And they've really built the enthusiasm back for us strong fans.
Hey, thanks for the call, Jim. We appreciate it. I mean, I think you're exactly right. I mean, the playoffs can be a reset button for some of these guys. Now, we've seen Ryan Johansson do this. Like, we've seen him even last year. He did not have a good season last year, but in the playoffs, in that round against Arizona, he was awesome. I mean, I don't think there's any way you could watch him play in that series against Arizona last year and not think he was one of the 2 or 3 best players on the ice for the Predators in that series. Can he do that again when the playoffs come around? There's a pretty good sample size at this point of him playing pretty well in the playoffs. So I think you feel good about that. If you're the Predators, I would expect Johansson to play well. Can Duchesne do that? That's going to be the question I have moving forward. Can Duchesne get to a place, even if he's playing on the third line, where he can make an impact for your group, whether that's on the power play, whether that's 5-on-5 generating offense and finishing? I mean, he had another chance Saturday night. He had a breakaway Saturday night. Couldn't get it to go. Like, those are plays in the playoffs that you need Matt Duchesne to finish on, and if he doesn't, it's going to be tough to win. Like, you need your playmakers against Carolina to make plays. It can't just be all about the goaltending.
No question. And, Matt Duchesne, the knock on Matt Duchesne, which probably has increased some here, but he's been on a lot of bad teams. Now, of course, it's not like he's constructing these teams that he's on, but he hasn't had a lot of team success in the league. Now, the one counter to that is how he played and how Columbus played 2 years ago in that shocker over Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And that's the Matt Duchesne the Predators love to see. You get that Matt Duchesne and you get the Ryan Johansson you're talking about, got a chance.
When we come back, it's time for Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. The Predators taking on Carolina tonight. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. If you guess the goal scorer for the Predators tonight, you will win a prize pack, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. We'll do that next here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 1025 The Game.
And the score! Who's going to find the back of the net in tonight's Preds game? Robby and Rexrode make their picks to click and welcome a listener to do the same. Pick to Click is brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka, the official vodka of the NHL.
And it is time for Preds Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. The Nashville Predators taking on the Carolina Hurricanes tonight, the final game of the regular season for the Predators before they go against Carolina again. Coming up here in the playoffs, a unique situation to be sure, closing out 2 games against Carolina and then playing the same team in the first round of the playoffs. And the competition pretty much over at this point in Preds Pick to Click, at least at the top. Still a race between you and the listeners, 7-7. So tied at the top of the leaderboard. Ryan Porth with 3 correct answers. Robby Stanley with 2 correct answers. So I'm trying to close the gap on Porth in the regular season tonight, and a fierce competition ongoing between Joe and the listeners.
I'm coming for you, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's win one for the Rexer.
That's right. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in today's participant, Tom from the Borough. Tom, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Well, this is going to be the tiebreaker.
Oh, I like that.
Ooh,
I like some confidence
This
heading into it.
This is a book it.
That's right. So, Tom, the Predators taking on Carolina tonight. Who is your pick to click for tonight's game?
Mikael Granlund.
I like that. Granlund, the selection by Tom. So, Tom, you think that's the one that gets it done tonight against Joe Rexrode in this competition?
Mikael Granlund.
There we go. I like that. Tom has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Good luck in the competition in Preds Pick to Click. Ryan Porth, are you okay?
Do we need to stop the show? Look at Porth.
So Tom selected Granlund. This is perhaps the most interesting edition of Preds Pick to Click all season long, for the simple fact of I have no idea who's going to play tonight. Wow. Granlund could play. I have no clue. I don't know if he's going to be in there or not.
So you put it out there earlier that maybe he'd be one of the prime candidates maybe to take a rest.
Maybe.
Given, I mean, the guy plays on everything. He's been busting it like a lot of guys, but he might be – it's tricky. I mean, I feel like you need to pick a little bit of a deep cut.
Maybe so. Well, you
but
got
maybe
the first.
Not.
You got the first pick today. So
I got
you're
the first
up.
pick.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen. I've strayed from him, and he could be out of there too. But I feel like he's a guy who's just going to play all the time, till the end of time, every night, somewhere in the lineup for this team. So. Joe Davion Rex Croak.
Oh, he's back at it.
We're back together.
He's back
baby.
at it.
Win it. Let's win it together.
I mean, win one for the Croaker.
You should have seen Rexrode in the press box the other night when Cunnin took the puck behind the net and Yarcroaks just cut right to the middle of the ice, and Cunnin just doesn't even look at it.
What are you doing?
Rexrode, what's going on? What are we doing?
I immediately turned. I'm like yelling at Vinga, like, what? How did he not see him? Like, we all see him. How did he not see him?
Screw you, Luke Cunnin. I know you've only scored twice today.
Well, he hadn't scored yet.
I hadn't scored at that point.
He scored
yet.
2
Right.
goals out of that. I was like, well, I mean, he made up for it.
I guess he made up for it.
Although Mikael Granlund, or Michael, deserves a lot of the credit for both those goals. Mikey Granlund or Mikael Granlund.
Yeah. Either way you want to cut
it.
Or
Justin Bradford.
So Granlund selected by Tom from the Borough. Joe Rexrode selecting Callie Yarncroke today in the competition. Give me Colton Sissons. I feel somewhat confident he'll play. Give me Colton Sissons to score tonight against the Carolina Hurricanes.
Hey, talk about a line that's playing a lot and creating a lot of offense. I like it. So you're hearkening back to number 1 center, Western Conference Finals, hat trick, Colton Sissons.
Love how we've gone 3 picks deep at this point. Nobody has selected Forsberg. Nobody has selected Tolvanen. Now, I feel somewhat confident Tolvanen will play.
Yeah.
But I don't know about Forsberg.
Have we hit on your pick?
Ryan Porth?
Huh?
The final pick.
Have we hit on your pick? Win one for the Porther.
That's right. Ryan Porth, the final selection today in Preds Pick to Click. Who are you?
No, you have not stolen my pick.
Okay.
No, we talked about Tolvanen, and you're like, yeah. So I thought you were all eager to pick Tolvanen.
This was about what you're going to do here.
Oh, no.
Okay. Who are you going with?
Do what you want to do then.
95, Matt Duchene.
Really? Okay. Matt Duchene. I feel pretty confident he'll play tonight.
That's a pick. That's a good pick in terms of probably going to be out there. And, he's been close.
He has. So Matt Duchene selected by Ryan Porth. So the predictions are as such. Tom from the Borough selecting Mikael Granlund. Joe Rexrode selecting Callie Yarncroke. Robby Stanley going with Colton Sissons. And Ryan Porth selecting Matt Duchene in the final regular season edition of Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka.
And Forsberg and Yossi, very popular picks.
Yes.
But
uncertain.
This is a day to be unsure about those
Now
guys.
watch us just go all the way through this, and then John Hines is like, yeah, everybody's playing tonight. Saros is in there. Forsberg's in there. Everybody's going.
It would not be the most shocking thing.
No.
I don't think that's how it's going to go, but you could make that case.
You could.
Like, here's another chance to match up with these guys and build on some of the gains you made last game.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that said, chance to gain on Joe Rexrode.
No, but
I guessed the line. He said nope.
But I like the toilet bowl competition we have going here, and I think
this is coming down to the wire between you and the listeners.
Yeah,
this tonight could be the game that decides it.
Tom in the Borough was confident, so confident he told us again who he picked.
That's right, Mikhail Granlund selected.
I don't think he said Mikhail Granlund.
He said Michael Granlund. He said Michael.
I think he said Mickey Al.
Mickey Al?
Yes.
Really?
We'll have to go back and listen to the audio.
Yeah, there's a lot of good audio to listen back to today.
Yes, there is. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, tonight is a statement game. Go out there and set the tone for the playoff series. You need to put doubt in Carolina's head. And we've seen a few of those on our text line saying, we get it. It's the final game of the regular season. Technically, you have nothing to play for, but you need to go after Carolina anyway and create some doubt in their head.
See, here's the thing. So let's say Dallas had lost Friday and it was over. And then the Preds, they lost. Again, the game doesn't mean that much, but they lost Saturday. They still hadn't beaten Carolina. I would think there'd be more incentive to say, you know what, some kind of success against this team, some kind of success for you, confidence for you, / some kind of doubt for them would be worthwhile. But you just got that. I mean, you just got that Saturday for whatever it was worth. And I do think that there's a little bit of difference in incentive on both sides. But full lineup of who is healthy for Carolina, I think you got that done. So I would err toward rest / health / injury avoidance tonight, even though it may be Pekarine's last hurrah, and it may be tough for him to win a last hurrah with the lineup in front of him. But then again, we don't know what Carolina's lineup will be either.
So who would you, if you could hand select players to rest tonight, who would it be? Because I think there are some interesting candidates. Like, you've got Johansson and Tolvanen, who I think need to play. Like, I still think there's some work that needs to be done 5-on-5. And Forsberg has just been out for over a month. So are you keeping him out again, or would you like to see him continue to play and maybe build up some legs, build up some conditioning headed in the playoffs? That's a heck of a risk to take, to leave him in the lineup as well.
Yeah, I to me, that's where I want to know the specifics of the injury. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because if he's back and that's just over, then I think I'm keeping them together for a full game against that team, at least some kind of a look of what you're going to get better together. You need that line to be better. So I would leave them out there. I like the idea of Granlund, especially now that Tom picked Granlund. I really
yes.
like the idea of Granlund.
You're a big fan of it.
But no, I mean, I feel like Granlund's a guy, he's used in every way in this team, and he's been such a big part of this. He makes sense. I just like Yossi is so important. I think those two would be right up at the top. And then, like you said earlier, like I'm not messing around with Arvidsson if he's not all the way back.
There's no reason to play Roman Yossi tonight either. Like, none. There's no reason to play Roman Yossi. Send him down.
Yeah, I think Yossi, Granlund makes sense. Look, you can make the case for Duchesne, and I tend to agree. I think he'll be out there, and you want him to keep building. You want him to have a breakthrough and play better and all that stuff. But he did just come off his own injury, so you could make the case that maybe some extra rest would do him well. But I don't know. And then what's Brind'Amour going to do?
That's going to be interesting to see what happens. This is a lot of morning skates you go through in the NHL are pretty mundane and not much to it. It's going to be interesting to see what the lines look like today, that morning skate. We'll keep you updated on that as that information becomes available. When we come back, we'll be joined by Darren McFarland, host of Darren Donica Chase, also handles the Predators pre- and post-game duties for the Nashville Predators radio network. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesale Link Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. The Nashville Predators have punched their ticket to the playoffs for the 7th consecutive season, and to help us talk more about that, we welcome in our good friend Darren McFarland, host of Darren, Donick, and Chase, also handles the Predators pre- and post-game duties for the Nashville Predators radio network. Darren, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
Robby, good morning. I feel like I should not be on here this morning. You should be having Pete Weber on, and so you two could just talk about stories that your partner have said on the air and how you reacted to those certain things that were said on the air. That would be a fun segment.
It would be a very fun segment, some of which we probably couldn't do on these airwaves.
Well,
but
maybe
it
there's
would
that
be
too.
I tell you what, I would certainly enjoy it.
I've got some clips from Pete, the one from a few years ago out west.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife and I cried listening to that.
We had one of
those.
those.
We play that on here?
No, probably not. We had one of those about an hour ago too on the air too. So been a good start to the morning here on Robby and Rexrode.
Sounds like a shirt was made last hour.
I believe the shirt probably was made last hour for sure.
I'd buy one.
Hopefully we'll have one ready for the game tonight.
Hopefully Robbie's face is not on this one.
I hope not. I really hope not. So Darren, with
just a headshot. You just want a headshot, Joe?
Yeah, with that in mind, and now that Porth has successfully lost his mind again in the control room, what did you think of the game on Saturday night for the Predators against Carolina? They punched their ticket against the Hurricanes. They'll be in the playoffs. What did you think of that effort? What stood out to you about the way the Predators came out and played that game against Carolina?
This is on me if we don't get through this segment. I'm going to take full responsibility for this. Well, I mean, it was obviously, coming off the game Wednesday night, considering what was at stake, Dallas taking care of business Friday night against Tampa. And, their final two games against Chicago, you're thinking, Dallas could quite possibly win out if there's something to play for. They needed to win. And I thought it was a good statement. It's pretty interesting. I asked Hal Gill after the game, in post-game, how would you handle Monday night? Because I know you guys were talking about that to kind of finish up last hour. How do you handle tonight when there's nothing at stake, right? This is the week 17 of the NFL season, or at least previous years. Now that they've added a game, I guess it'll be week 18. Whenever there's nothing on the line and you're trying to figure out who's going to play and who's not going to play, that's kind of the feeling tonight. So how do you handle that as a player? And he said, you're asking me, a guy who played 16 years, and how I played. He's like, I'm setting the tone. I'm letting them know tonight, this is how it's going to be moving forward for this series. And so I'll be curious to see how it's handled, because there's this other element that you can't play scared and you can't worried about that stuff. But the way this team has dealt with the injuries all season long, you can't go out there and play in bubble wrap either. But yet there's that element of John Hines doesn't want to get anybody hurt. So, I thought it was a great win on Saturday. That was truly the tone setter, because Carolina didn't ease into that game. They were there to win it. They were trying to wrap up a President's Trophy. They were there to take those 2 points, and the Predators pushed back. They beat them at their own game, and I thought it was a fantastic game by them and a great way to clinch. It was a fun night. Over 7,100 people in the arena. It just, again, it was an electric atmosphere, a fun atmosphere, and they punched their ticket for the 7th consecutive year. I thought it was a great game. Don't have any idea how tonight's going to look, but it was a great game Saturday night.
No, agree, and it was great atmosphere. It has to be some kind of a confidence builder, but when you watch that game, Darren, are you thinking this is what it's going to be? I mean, Carolina is still playing for the President's Trophy, but not the same level of incentive that the Preds had. I mean, how much can you carry that game forward into the weekend and beyond?
Well, it was interesting, Joe. We had Mike Kelly on from NHL Network last week on Darren, Donick, and Chase, and he said Carolina flat out, with no hesitations, the best forechecking team in the league. I mean, he's like, they just make things so incredibly difficult. They make you work so hard, and oh, by the way, they're very fast. They're big, they're physical, they're fast. They will battle for everything. I mean, they are just a perfect combination. They're great on special teams. Last night or Saturday night's game, I think they were second on the power play in the league, third on the penalty kill in the league. I mean, what do they not – what's their weakness? I would say goaltending is not their weakness, Joe. It's just probably, if you're looking at all the strengths, it's probably down the list. They have 3 goalies. It is going to be interesting to see who Brendan Moore goes with to start this series. I think there's kind of a mixed bag. A lot of people feel like who started Saturday night is who should start in Game 1, but there's others that say that Peter Mrazek has earned that right. But look, what it's going to take to win 4 games against them in a 7-game series, Joe, is just simply the effort. They're going to have to do – it's going to be hard, right? Like, how do you duplicate what you did Saturday night, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, possibly even 7 times? It's going to be hard because that's how Carolina is going to bring it, and you have to match that intensity every single game just to have a chance to win, right? By the way, that was a game. Right, it was a game. Yes, they got the empty netter at the end, but it was not like and I realized the Predators with Cunning's goal pulled away to 2-0, but they had that quick strike. It's 2-1, so midway through the third period, it's a 1-goal game. It's going to be tight. It's going to be difficult, but Carolina is arguably the best team in the league, and so it's not supposed to be easy. But can they match that for a series? We're about to find out.
Darren, you and I were talking in pregame on Saturday, and one of the things we talked about was the third defense pair and how you're going to handle that if you're John Hynes and the Predators. And it's interesting. I mean, Dante Fabro, a scratch Saturday night. They go with Ben Harper and Matt Benning, and we talked about how somebody's got to play on the left side, and right now it looks like Ben Harper is going to be that guy on the left side. How do you handle that third pair moving forward if we feel comfortable that Yossi Ellis, Ekholm, and Carrier are locks and they're going to be in the lineup? How do you handle that third pair moving forward if you're John Hynes heading into this series?
I don't know, Robbie. I don't know what went into the decision with Fabro. Like, what does that mean? I mean, we've also he's been hurt, right? He had just came back from missing 13 games when he came back in the lineup. And he played 1 game, and then he was right back out of the lineup. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if this is more, a nagging injury that's really affecting him. Is this just the play isn't to the standard that they need it to be? I mean, I think we've all seen. I mean, Carrier, the odds, and we did talk about this Saturday night. Can you imagine the odds we would have had coming into the season, where Carrier's status is with this team going into the final game of the regular season to where Dante Fabro's status is? Man, we would have lost. The odds, 1, would have been astronomical, and 2, we would all bet on Fabro, and we would have lost our shirts. And so, Carrier has clearly pushed well ahead of Fabro. Fabro's got more growth in his game, and so I don't know. Do you dare sit him out in the playoff series? I mean, he's still a really important piece to your team. He's still very young. He's still a first-round pick. So I suspect Fabro's going to be in there when it's all said and done. I guess you go Fabro in Benning, but I don't know. You raise a really good question of I think that was part of the strategy. I don't know. Maybe he's going to go with Harper for the physical element because you're going to need that against Carolina, but I don't know. That means you're sitting Dante Fabro. I don't know. I think it's a great question, and I'll be very curious to see how it plays out moving forward. And maybe it's an easy decision. Maybe there is this injury element that is affecting Dante Fabro, and it becomes an easier decision. But if that's not in play, I do think it's a tough decision that I don't know where John Hynes would lean.
So, Darren, in goal tonight, are we going to see Rinne? Do you put any stock into the report from Finland that, apparently there's some interest when he's done? And where are you right now on Rinne retiring? Notice that I'm only using last names for these questions.
Yes.
I do think he will be in net tonight. I do think it's going to be an electric atmosphere for that. I think Pekka, I can say it, I feel comfortable in saying it, is going to be uncomfortable because that's not his style, right? He's going to get acknowledged a lot. He's going to get standing ovations. It's going to be weird. And, yes, there's been no official word, and, yes, we don't know what his future holds. We've been talking about it a lot. I have felt like it's over 50%. It's greater than 50% that he is not back, that he retires from the NHL, whether that means he plays a season in Finland or 2, whatever, back home. But I do think it's greater than 50% that he hangs it up. He calls it an NHL career here. So that means tonight, unless something happens to UC Saros in the playoff series, this could be it. And for the most popular Predator player ever, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a very emotional night. Was still, like I said, without anybody knowing, but you have to go in with that mindset because you don't want to go in not thinking that. And then what if he does make that decision? You realize you didn't really take full advantage of acknowledging, Pekka Rinne's career here. He deserves that. He deserves everything he's going to get tonight and all the acknowledgement moving forward, whatever, when that decision comes, because, what he has meant to this franchise, what he has meant to this fan base, what he has meant to everybody who's played in that locker room alongside him. And I don't know what's going to happen. I just suspect that this was before the report, Joe, that I have felt like it's greater than 50%. I don't know what that number is. Is it 51%? Is it 55%? Is it 60%? I don't know. But even before that trickled out there on Friday afternoon, I still felt like it was greater than 50% that he wakes up at some point in the offseason and says, I think this is it. So probably that went up a little bit more after that report. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun tonight, and I think Pekka is going to be uncomfortable with it because that's how he is, but he just needs to know that this is because of what he's done for this franchise, and he'll deserve everything that happens. The third period is going to be special. Pay attention to the third period tonight. It should be a special night in Smashville.
Darren McFarland, host of Darren, Donick, and Chase, also handles the Predators pre- and post-game duties for the Nashville Predators Radio Network, has been our guest. He joins us every Monday at 9 o'clock here on Robby and Rexrode. Darren, great stuff. You tried to derail us, but it didn't work. We got back on track. We appreciate it.
You guys are pros. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
That's right. Darren McFarland joins us every Monday at 9 o'clock here on Robby and Rexrode. When we come back, what kind of an accomplishment is this for this Predators team to make the playoffs this year? How do you view this playoff berth in the grand scheme of things of this franchise? We'll talk about that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Join 102.5 The Game tomorrow from 10 to 6 p.m. at 3rd and Home as Darren Donick and Chase broadcast live, followed by Stillman Company. The Nashville Sounds have their home opener that evening, so come celebrate baseball being back in Nashville. Grab some game swag and enter to win tickets to an upcoming Sounds home game. Get your tickets now for Nashville Sounds Baseball at NashvilleSounds.com and tune into Sounds games this season on ESPN 94.9. First pitch on Tuesday is at 6:35. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Talking Nashville Predators, they punched their ticket to the playoffs on Saturday with a 3-1 win against the Carolina Hurricanes. They'll take on Carolina in the first round of the playoffs. And, Joe, that has us asking the question, what kind of an accomplishment is this for the Predators to clinch the playoffs on Saturday night? And you can approach this from a couple of different areas. I mean, I picked before the season the Predators to finish 4th and make the playoffs, be a bubble team. That's exactly what happened. Now, certainly, it did not play out the way that I think anybody else anticipated that it would. But I think if you would have told the average Predators fan, hey, the team was going to make the playoffs on the second to last day of the regular season and they were going to be the 4th seed in the Central Division, fans would have said, okay, I mean, that sounds about right. They're a bubble team. There is a pretty high level of excitement right now for this Predators team based on where they were, the conversations that we were having about blowing this team up and who's going to get traded and all these stuff. And then now you've gone on this 2-month run where you've been one of the best teams in the NHL over that span, and you found a way to get into the playoffs when you had, at one point, a less than 1% chance, a 0.34% chance to get in the playoffs. So with all of that in mind, the complete picture of the long-term trajectory and what's happened this season and the ups and downs that we've seen, how do you view this playoff berth by the Predators? How do you think the fans view this playoff berth by the Predators?
I think that's largely answered by how you view things. You know, you're a Predators fan who drifts toward the optimistic. I mean, you could certainly make the case this team, as it's playing, this style of play, with this goaltender who now has sustained has sustained 2 months of like top of the league Vezina level play. Well, that's not a 4th seed that limps into the playoffs. That's better than that. This version of the team is better than a 4th seed. I think if the Preds had just sort of had your basic season, up and down, been around there the whole time and got in, I think there'd be less excitement right now than there is. That said, you could still, and I've heard people say this, and I get it, you know, this is fool's gold. This is the Preds convincing themselves or their fans that they're better than average, and it's still an average team. And ultimately, it's not a team that is built to do what the Preds want to do and what their fans want them to do. I mean, frankly, I think both of those things have merit. And I think that what happens in this playoff series is probably going to push the needle one way or the other. I said at the trade deadline, okay, get in. That's a huge part of it. When you don't do anything, you better get in. Well, they got in. That's a big – because if they didn't get in, we'd go all the way back to all the stuff we were talking about, David Poile and everything, when things looked like they're about to get blown up. But then be competitive. Have a good series, like have a good showing. A good showing is not getting just swept out of the playoffs or losing in 5 games. It's winning multiple games, and it's being in these games and competing with a team that could win it all and then re-signing Granlund. That's my standard for what makes not selling worth it.
At Inversity on Twitch says, I remember the last time the Preds were the lowest seed in the playoffs.
Yes.
We're going to hear a lot of that this week. We've already heard a lot of it today on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, pointing out the last seed coming in. Last time we saw the Predators do that, they obviously got to the Stanley Cup final. That's the natural connection to make. I do think this situation is different in a lot of ways, starting with your first-round opponent. Carolina, not only are they good, but they're also young. I mean, they are young. They are fast. They just play a different way than their Chicago. As great as those Chicago teams were, and as good as I still think that Chicago team was that the Predators took down in that first round, they just don't play the same way that this Carolina team plays. I mean, the forecheck is relentless. They have a ton of speed. And if there's one thing that I think the Predators exposed about Chicago in that series and that we've not really seen from Chicago since then is they were getting older and the speed just wasn't there. And that was kind of the first step of this rebuild that we've started to see from the Blackhawks. So I hear the comparisons. I understand why they're made. I do think these are two very different situations.
Yeah, look, if Saros goes in to rally and gets 2 straight shutouts, then I'm going to have all kinds of flashbacks to 2017. But it is different. It was a team that, I don't know, it's a little bit of revisionist history to say it was a team that was about to fall off a cliff because you certainly didn't know that at the time.
Sure.
I mean, they were one of the best teams in the league all year, but now that we can look back on it all,
we've seen the cliff dive.
Yeah, I mean, the Preds basically gave them a little shove,
yeah.
And there they went. That's not this Carolina team, I think, is going to be here to stay. Now, you said earlier on the show a great point. I also thought, Preds Jets from 3 years ago was the start of something long-term and fantastic, and it goes up and down quickly in this league. So you got to keep that in mind. But, hey, there are way crazier things that have happened in this tournament, way crazier things than this Nashville team beating this Carolina team. So that's another, if you want to be optimistic, that this would not even register on the shocking upsets of all time list.
No.
And those things happen. You talk about the comparison to the Preds 4 years ago. I do wonder, is there anything about this team that reminds you at all of the Blues team from 2 years ago? They've had some wacky mid-season trajectory bumps in the last 5 years, including that one.
I mean, the goaltender certainly does. That to me still was the biggest story about the Blues
and
how they won the Cup this year is Bennington came in and he was just a force, and they rode that all the way to a Cup final. And we've come to know since then he's still a good goaltender, but he's not what he was in those playoff runs or that playoff run specifically. But, yeah, I mean, that's the one – I think really stark similarity that I see is the goaltending is just otherworldly. And when you have that, it doesn't matter who you're playing against, you give yourself a chance. And I think that's what you're banking on right now if you're the Predators. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Ryan from Hermitage, who wants to weigh in. Ryan, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Thanks, guys. Honestly, I think Saturday showed that this team can hang in Carolina. They think they finally found the way to do it, and it's not going skill on skill. It's pressing them, hitting them. The only way you stop speed is you got to hit them. And I think they figured that out on Saturday, especially with the herd line. Every time they got a chance, they laid a body on someone. And honestly, tonight, I think Preds would be smart to scratch as many stars as they can, because if Slavin is really hurt of what they're saying from Carolina, you may get some guys that may take advantage of Yossi or an Ellis in the corner and take advantage, try to knock him out, since they knocked out one of their top defenders.
Hey, thanks for the call, Ryan. We appreciate it. I mean, to that point, number one, I'm really interested to see what Slavin's status is this morning. If he's hurt and if it's somewhat long-term, that's a big deal for Carolina. So interested to see what happens there. And, look, I don't know how much there's going to be people running around tonight trying to take liberties in this game. But if I'm John Hines, I just avoid that possibility altogether with some of my top guys if you're worried about something like that.
Yeah, and it's a good point on the confidence and how you play. I mean, we've said it with Carolina in previous matchups, even during this good stretch for the Preds. You can't hit what you can't catch. In some of those games, it's like, well, they couldn't hit anyone because the puck was already to the next guy and then the next guy, and you're chasing, and at times it looked like a total mismatch. It looked way better the other night. So I think you have to take something out of that. I think you have to give credit to the Preds for that. Rod Brindamore talked extensively before the game about bad habits and just not letting things slide at all, even if it may not be the most important game because you clinch the division. You've got to be playing your game going into the playoffs. So I do think they wanted to do that. It's just there's a desperation level and there's a tick below that. But still, it's got to be some kind of a confidence builder. You had to beat this team once.
Yeah. Christopher on Periscope says, while I'm excited, there is a hesitancy. I just can't see us getting past this playoff bracket. You've got Carolina, and then if you win, you've got Tampa Bay or Florida. That's a tough back-to-back right there.
But then
You get like
Colorado
or Vegas.
But then if you get through those 3, it's wide open for you, man.
Pittsburgh or somebody like that.
Stanley Cup final.
Yeah. Hey.
See? No, that is a big difference between this and 17 is we saw the bracket in 17 and it was like, yeah, there's really no one that's scary if they can get past the Blackhawks.
Yep.
And this is just another big challenge after another. I mean, there's no way around it. If you win this series, you got another team that has handled you pretty well that you got to beat.
Regardless of who comes out of that Tampa Bay, Florida series, that's for sure. So, look, I think you'll take that problem. That's a good problem to have because that means that you've gotten past Carolina if you're the Predators, and you'll cross that bridge when you get to it. But certainly, as you look at it on paper, this is a really tough division right now with the top 3 in the Central. And if you're the Predators, the position you put yourself in, you're going to have to try your best to try to fight through it here. And that starts later, hopefully this week, in the playoffs against Carolina. When we come back, we'll continue to talk about the Predators, look ahead to tonight's game. Could this be Pekka Rinne's last game? What would you do with the lineup tonight if you're John Hynes? Who plays? Who sits? All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, talking all things Nashville Predators. They punched their ticket to the playoffs on Saturday night, a 3-1 win against Carolina. One more game against the Hurricanes in the regular season tonight at Bridgestone Arena. Puck drop at 7 o'clock, pregame at 6 o'clock here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. And then it's on to the playoffs where you'll see Carolina again. So, Joe, potentially 9 consecutive games for the Predators against Carolina. That would be quite something to play the same team 9 times in a row. You talk about some hostility that gets built up.
9 times, says Ed Rooney. Yeah, that would be a lot. I could tell the other night that the Hurricanes were, in particular, not enjoying the herd line.
No.
The new top line for this team,
yes,
as we call them. We no longer call them the fourth line. They are the top line. But you could see the frustration, and we've talked about it a lot this year, the interesting little schedule, the same 7 teams twice in a row. Now you go from that into a series, but maybe tonight there'll be a lot of guys on the ice who aren't going to play in that series. That's possible too.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says NHL.com ranks the Canes, Tampa Bay, and Florida as numbers 2, 4, and 5, respectively. The Preds are 5-5-1 the past few weeks versus these teams. They can hang with these teams in the playoffs.
Well, I think there's a lot more evidence now to think that they can hang. Hang? Can they beat? Can they advance? That's the next question. But, yeah, look, I think it would be massively disappointing if the Preds go out and just get smoked in 5 games and get, squeak out 1 game and get rolled in 3 of the 4 losses or whatever. It would be very disappointing for them not to make this an actual series.
Ron on the text line says, looking ahead for tonight, I'd give my starters a little playing time just to keep everybody fresh, but I would get them out of there as soon as possible because of possibility of headhunting. Save our guys and have them ready for the games that count.
A lot of headhunting concerns out there.
You got to watch out for those Carolina Hurricanes.
I mean, if that's, is it not flip around the other way? Like if the Preds put in some guys who don't really play, I guess they could be headhunting too, right?
Could be.
I don't think there's going to be headhunting. But there is always a reason to be careful with guys and give them extra rest.
And also remember, you're either playing a guy or you're not. You can't just take him out in the middle of the game. There's no sub coming in. You're dressing 18 skaters and 2 goalies. That's who you got. So you got to make that decision if you're John Hines before the game. Who's going to be in there tonight? Who's going to play? To me, and this is just me, there's no way in the world Roman Jossi's getting on the ice tonight. If I'm the coach, Roman Josi is not playing tonight. He's just not. I mean, I might go the same way with a Ryan Ellis or a Matthias Ekholm as well. You can't sit everybody, and I recognize that. So I'm not sure you're going to sit all 3 of those guys, but there's no way Roman Jossi's playing tonight if I'm the coach. And I'd be interested to see about some of these other guys. Like Forsberg, he's coming off an injury. I still don't think he's quite up to full speed. Would you like to see him have another game under his belt before you go into the playoffs? I think that's a possibility. I think I'd be shocked if Matt Duchene sits tonight. I think you need him playing as much as possible to just try to get some level of confidence, some level of momentum generated heading into the playoffs if you're Matt Duchene and if you're the Predators. So, I would expect him to be in there. What do you do with a guy like Granlund, who's done so much for you as of late? He's playing 20-something minutes a night. He's on the penalty kill. He's on the power play. As Roman Josi put it the other night, he just eats a bunch of pucks on the penalty kill, blocking shots. I mean, to me, I'd have him out of the lineup tonight. There's a lot of interesting decisions that John Hines is going to have to make. And I just, when you're weighing the risk versus reward, I'm not really all that concerned about losing all your momentum you've gained in one game tonight. I'm just not.
No, I agree. You've got the evidence right there of what you need to do, what you can do, and I think there's more benefit to the break than there is harm in any sort of rhythm loss. So basically you're saying people who are playing well, who are valuable, sit. People who are valuable but maybe need to get going still, play. Well, if that's the case, why not sit the herd line then? Maybe those guys should get a rest.
Maybe they will. I don't know.
Most important line, sit them down.
Yeah.
But I would keep I would keep Johansson, Forsberg, Tolvanen together and play them if I didn't have any – if it wasn't like, well, Forsberg's been playing, but he's really only 90%. Well, if that's the case, then sit him. But if you feel fine about where things are health-wise, I think that line could use as much work as possible and needs to sharpen up as much as possible.
Well, and the power play, too. I mean, the power play, quite honestly, looked pretty bad the other night against Carolina. It was – I mean, they couldn't get anything going. Tolvanen was a non-factor on the power play. He got one shot through, and he got tipped and went off the post. But, I mean, there wasn't much on the power play the other night. How much of a concern is that? Like, do you want to, throw everything you've got at Carolina? We've had some people on the text line say, don't give them any film. Like, I think we're past that point. Like, Rod Brindamore talked about it after the game. Like, there are not many secrets left between the Predators and Hurricanes. You played each other 8 times this year. You, by and large, know what the other team's doing. They know what you're doing. It's just about who can execute the best. So I'm not overly worried if I'm the Predators about, Carolina coming up with some secret game plan against the Predators. I think you pretty much know at this point what each other's trying to do out there.
Yeah, that's not a thing. It really is. It's desire and winning some battles here and there. It's executing. It's connecting on some of those passes, like the 2 Granlund passes the other night. I mean, those are just spectacular passes. Those are plays that create, especially the first one. It's just an ability to see something other people don't see, create a play, boom, you score. You got to have plays like that, and then it's goaltending.
Yeah, and I would assume, speaking of the lineup, like Pekka, at this point, I'm not going to say shocked. I would be really surprised if it's not Pekka tonight. Like, we've had some people make arguments to keep Saros in, and you don't want him to be off for a week. And I do think that's something you probably need to think about and consider if you're John Hines. But I really don't think a week is that big of a deal. Like, I'm going Pekka tonight. And if it's not – like, if you started Saros tonight, what's really the difference between going a week and going 5 days without a start? There's not a ton. Like, I wouldn't be that concerned about starting Pekka tonight and having some sort of adverse effect on Saros moving forward.
Yeah, I think there's the rest benefit beats out the rhythm, stay hot, whatever you want to call it.
And even mentally too. Like, he's been so locked in, and they've needed him to be at such a high level for the last month and a half, 2 months now at this point. Like, at some point, that takes a toll on you to be able to just kind of get away from that for a little bit and reset before you've got to go back into that mode coming up later this week. I think that could be very beneficial. Like, we always talk about the physical part of this, and I think that's obviously important. Sometimes the mental part of it's pretty tough too, like the grind, especially this year with everything going on in the NHL and the protocols and all this stuff. Like, you're about to get into a place where that's about to be relaxed coming in the playoffs. They're going to be able to do some things together that they've not been able to do all season long. That's going to help. But also, I think just like the mental toughness that we've talked about that's been on display for the last 2 months, sometimes getting away from that and being able to reset could be big for this team and for Saros in particular.
Yeah, now, of course, you're going to sit there for a bunch of days and think about, this is now we're going to find out about Saros in the playoffs and all this stuff. But, hey, there's been a lot of pressure. There was pressure to the extent of, if you want to talk about outside talk of, gosh, is Saros even going to be here next year? He's a bridge guy, et cetera, et cetera. So he clearly tunes that stuff out, and I think there's a lot more benefit to having him sit.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Heidi from Dixon text in, I don't trust this team to turn off the switch tonight and turn it back on in round 1 immediately. Even if it only takes one period to wake up this weekend, that one period can make the difference in a series. Full speed ahead tonight with the starters. Rest versus rust argument is not worth messing with our momentum. So obviously people feel very differently. There's all sorts of opinions on the rest versus rust argument heading into this game tonight for the Predators against the Hurricanes. We're going to find out here in probably about an hour or so what's going to end up happening with the lineup. We'll have an idea of what's going to go on at the morning skate. So looking forward to that. When we come back, we'll continue to get your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Final segment of the day here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Right now talking Nashville Predators. They punched their ticket to the playoffs with a win against Carolina on Saturday night. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Ron text in. My question is, which professional sports team will bring a championship to Tennessee first? Will it be the Grizzlies, the Predators, the Titans, or Nashville SC? Ron's answer is the Predators winning a championship first.
I don't know. I mean, there's no clear answer. You could make a case for – I mean, I guess if I had right now, I'd probably say Titans, I think. I still think the Titans right now are the closest. I mean, I don't think the Grizzlies are
it's not the Grizzlies, I can tell you that.
And I don't think, Nashville SC, heck of a run last year, nice win Saturday. I don't know that they're ready to be in that neighborhood yet. But I would say it would probably be between Titans and Preds for me. I still think it's more of a stretch to say Preds, even though the last 2 months – I mean, honestly, before the last 2 months, it would have been laughable, and we would have put them last.
Yeah.
But I think Titans would be my answer.
I'd probably lean Titans as well, although I can't get over, like, every time I say that, like, Patrick Mahomes' face just starts staring at me in my mind. I'm like, he
didn't win last year.
I know, but he got there. Yeah, the AFC, and you got to get through him to get there. So I don't know. I mean, my immediate answer would be the Titans, but I think the path can be pretty tough when you've got that guy. And who knows, maybe Aaron Rodgers comes to the AFC as well. Makes it a little tougher.
I thought you dismissed the Grizzlies maybe a little too quickly.
The Grizzlies are not going to win a championship.
I would lean that way too, but if they were to find a way to get another player in there with Ja Morant that could hang with the top teams in the West, I mean, maybe they're more in the discussion than they are now.
Well, the thing about this question is it's who wins it first.
Right.
So, it could be none of the answers is ridiculous because it could be 20 years from now. It
could be 50.
I mean, yeah. I mean, whoever wins first, it's certainly not a stretch to think that like the Titans won't win it with this group.
Sure.
That the Preds won't win it with this group. On and on and on.
It's kind of hard to win championships. We've noticed.
Exactly. So you could just say the Grizzlies and say, I think they're going to have an incredible 2033 draft.
Yes. Maybe so.
But I agree, actually, with these groups. There's one more difference maker. I mean, we're seeing Jaren Jackson coming back, what difference he makes. They haven't had him all year. One more offensive difference maker for them, I do think could be interesting. But who is that? How do they get him? Do they get him before he leaves? I mean, hopefully Ja Morant wants to stay there and try to get it done there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just the NBA is a different animal. Like, you've got to have – basically, I mean, the modern-day NBA, you've got to have a super team. And I don't anticipate that Memphis, even though Ja Morant is there, they're going to be able to do something like that. I just don't.
But Miami, your Miami Heat was not a super team last year.
Different culture down there. Just a lot of hard work.
Yeah, okay, well, that works.
I know. They also have Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra. It's a little different.
Sure, I mean, but I'm just saying they're not like your classic. They used to be, but they're not this classic super team, and they are right in there, right?
They are.
I mean, the Golden State Warriors they were an organic kind of super team when they were winning championships. Then they get Durant, and they become a super team, but they won it without him.
They did. So you can draft really well. I mean, you're just going to have to do right now. Who's the number 2 for John Morant? Jaren Jackson. That's not a number 2.
Right, I agree. Like he could be a really good 3.
Yes.
And then I like some of the role players and what they Valanciunas he can score inside. Yeah, I agree. Who's the 2? And then all of a sudden I think they could be real interesting.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, I seriously think Pekka needs to be tested in his first round. Yes, it's amazing we made it, but also we need to see how much he has left in the tank. He barely played the last half of the season. I think you throw him out there. I want to see him compete and get the fire back. He's still a very good goaltender. This coming from Cal. Pekka's not playing in the first round. unless you're pulling Saros in a game or Saros gets hurt, like there's no chance Pekka Rinne's starting.
I'm assuming this is like the primary headline on Preds Facebook. Like,
it could be.
Pekka Rinne must start in the playoffs. I mean, no, it's not even it's not anything that would give like a half second of consideration.
No.
Like from John Hines. It just would not happen.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam in Portland texting in. Seeing Bridgestone come to life Saturday night was so awesome. We're still hoarse. If we can bring the same energy in the playoffs, we give ourselves an advantage that no other team in the league has. Let's go. And then about 1,000 exclamation points. Adam is pumped up today here on this Monday morning. I will say the environment Saturday was pretty awesome. I mean, you had a little bit over 7,000 in there, and it felt like, a normal Bridgestone Arena game. I mean, it was loud. You had the standing O. There were times, when that empty netter went in from Eric Halla, that place erupted. It was really loud, a really awesome environment, and I think that's going to continue to increase as the playoffs get closer now that they're coming up next week. Like you could see more people coming in the building, and it is interesting. You've got, I think, a similar environment that you'll see in Tampa and in Florida as well. I don't know what Carolina's doing yet at this point in terms of their attendance, but certainly you're going to see a difference made in terms of the crowd when it comes to Bridgestone Arena.
And one of the ironic things about this setup is that it's the NASCAR series.
Yep.
Nashville, Carolina. And these are two of the rowdiest buildings for a postseason.
Yep.
And kind of wish it would be 100% for both so that we could see those two environments for a 7-game series, but probably the only time they'll ever play in the playoffs outside of a potential Stanley Cup final down the road.
Yep. That's a good point. Yeah, if what we've seen projects, because the other night, basically, other than Jared, badgering us, you, me, and Vingan before the game, it was an incredible night in that building.
Yes.
But based on what we've seen from 5,700 to about 7,000, and it's going to be about 70%. It's not going to be the whole thing, but man,
pretty close.
It's going to feel pretty close. Even the timeouts that they've had a couple times here recently, I was like, gosh, that's pretty close.
I'll say this, from being in the building on Saturday night, I was there for the first game this year too when no one was in there. That was awful. I hope we never go back to that. That was terrible. It's not even the same sport.
That would suck.
It's not even the same sport.
Well, I think with what we've all endured in the last year, especially from a sports standpoint without fans or a percentage of fans in buildings, once we're back to 100% and getting back to normal, I think we're going to appreciate that a whole lot more.
I think so. I would hope so anyway. That's for sure. Joe, we've talked a lot about the Predators today. We've not gotten a chance really to touch on this much today yet on the show. Henry To'oTo'o announcing that he will be playing at Alabama to finish out his college career. What do you think of that? How much does that hurt Tennessee? And what do you think he could bring to an Alabama team that's already obviously pretty loaded?
I think he's going to be great there. I understand the Tennessee fan who says, yeah, but Alabama, they've got all these 5-star guys everywhere, and To'oTo'o was one of our few, and he stood out at Tennessee. Is he going to stand out there? My answer is yes. He's going to stand out there. He's going to be great, and it's a big pickup for Alabama. And it's tough for the Vols fan who has to watch him and probably watch him come in and thump Tennessee next year. But it's a big pickup. I think Jawan Mitchell is a very big pickup also for Josh Heupel. And
they had to find somebody.
Yeah.
They could play that position, linebacker.
Yeah, badly needed it. I think he's a good player. Texas, it's hard with Big 12 defenses in that league,
Yes.
He's a good player. And also, if there's any fake accounts out there who tweet anything funny about a player taking money, I will maybe retweet it, and I don't care what you say about it.
That's right. You're under some heat this weekend. It's just a constant thing with you on Twitter. You're always under heat.
Well, this is, and I've heard you should be investigating whatever, man. I'm not investigating. It was funny. And, apparently it was a fake Instagram photo of To'oTo'o. I got a laugh out of it. And the larger remains about how college football works. Let's Alabama fans, you should not feel bad at all about your team cheating.
And we'll see if the Predators can win one for Pekka Rinne tonight when they take on the Hurricanes. That's all for us today. Darren Donick and Chase is coming up next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Win one for the Pecker